and he's a promising player. Here's Robinson, right side. Nice cutback. He's gone. Can anybody catch him? Not tonight. McCreary chasing. Won't get there. Touchdown, Atlanta. 93 yards.
What a night for Bijan Robinson. Remember the time when people made fun of the Falcons for drafting Bijan Robinson in the first round? Yeah, I think it's worked out. Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan today. Every time I hear the open from Kevin, I just think back of all the days that he has talked just like Kevin is exactly the same way off the air as he is on the air, in case anybody's wondering. Listen, we are now in the final stretch of the NFL season here, and I will at some point get to a very, very specific thing the NFL needs to change when it comes to extending these seasons. We'll talk to David Harrison at noon, WUSA 9, Locked On Commanders. Of course, get into those Commanders. Brian DeArdo covers the NFL for CBS Sports. Talk to him in an hour. I had absolutely no sense as to what was going to go on with that game last night when the Falcons were up 21-0. But this is one thing I will say. Don't think for a second that if you can draft a running back in the NFL, that can also be a wide receiver and also be an offensive weapon for you, that it's a waste of a draft pick. It doesn't happen all the time. But if the Commanders can find somebody like a Bijan Robinson, I know they don't just grow on trees, but for the love of God, if they could find somebody like that, listen, I like Bill. I like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, but he ain't that. And as much as they've hyped him up this year, he's got a role on this team next year. Had a great game against the Cowboys. Dude, he ain't Bijan Robinson. That's why they drafted him in the first round. Look, Matt Stafford threw 3 picks last night. Drake May is now the heavy favorite to win MVP, and this is what we're going to see a lot of right now. Every quarterback from Jaden Daniels' draft class is going to be compared year after year after year. Like, this isn't a new thing. We've seen this before with other draft classes. I mean, obviously one of the famous ones is going back to Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf, and we know how those careers turned out, though. Good for Ryan Leaf because he's really made the most out of his life after some really, really dark times. But look, this year is the down year for Jaden. This year is the up year for Drake May. And there's a lot of, man, look who Washington passed on. Oh, my God. Oh, look, how could they do? Let's pump the brakes. We got a lot of career left. Now, I get it. Like, I have been a fan of this team. I have covered this team, not on the beat, but certainly on this station and the Fan and all these other players. I've been through the suck with you. Like, we've all been through the suck. So I get that there are scars when you look at somebody like a Drake May, who's now an MVP, heavy favorite, too, for those of you that dabble. Heavy favorite. There's no value in betting Drake May to an MVP. I'll just say that. But, you know, it doesn't mean that Matt Stafford, if the starters do play Week 18, doesn't mean that he can't still make a case and win MVP. And, like, that's 3 picks last night is not going to guarantee anything for him. But the bigger thing here is that, look, Drake May could win MVP this year. After what happened from Matt Stafford last night, after what we saw, there is absolutely a case that Drake May in his first full season as a starter for the New England Patriots could win MVP. And it's not like this is anything new. Like, we've seen quarterbacks. Technically, Drake May started, half of last year, whatever it was. Fine. But we've seen young quarterbacks win MVP a lot. But here's the thing. Jaden Daniels was in an MVP conversation last year. So we're kind of in it. Look, it's an awkward spot right now if you're looking at where the Commanders are, because we're in the middle of the suck, right? Like, this season has been terrible. I've suffered through it. You've suffered through it. And I'm still trying to figure out, right? Like, I'm going to sit on the couch and kick back, think about this when it's all said and done. Did last year's 12-win season make this worse? Or does it ease the pain? I don't even have an answer for you for that right now. But seeing all the injuries and seeing Drake May have an MVP season and Jaden Daniels barely play, I mean, makes it worse, doesn't it? Doesn't make it fun. Doesn't make this any better. But now doesn't guarantee the future. So that's the one thing that I've been trying to tell anybody that's panicking about this year is don't think that just because of what you're seeing this year from a Washington side of things versus Caleb Williams and Drake May and the seasons that they're having We've already gone through look at all these coaches that were under Mike Shanahan that are great head coaches. Now, I get it. Like, we're all scarred. We've dealt with it. But more film on Drake May, more on Caleb Williams, who's certainly been better this year, but it's not like Caleb has looked like Drake May has looked like an MVP. Caleb Williams has not, but he's looked better than where he was last year. Okay. So with more film on those guys, there could also be some injuries that hit them next season. But what if you get a healthy Jaden Daniels next year? Right? And that's not even comparing some of the other guys. Bo Nix, who's had a really good year for a Denver team that's playing for a number 1 seed this weekend. Michael Penix Jr. didn't play last night. Kirk Cousins was out there. I still root for Kirk, by the way. I do. But, there's such a small sample size of all of these quarterbacks. Such a small sample size to their careers that, I get it. It's natural for us to be in this position to watch what's happened and watch the dumpster fire, the disaster, as the great Doc Walker would say, the Commanders throwing up all over themselves on a regular basis this year. I get it. It's easy to compare. Like, we do it all the time with everything. Social media has made that easy. Social media has done that for people, for fans, right? You're watching Patriots fans celebrate again, which, by the way, does anybody outside of New England or that fan base want to see the Patriots have more success? Of course not. I don't, you don't, but wouldn't you trade it? I mean, I'd take it. But when I look at where Washington is now, I look at this and say this is still the inevitable rebuild that was going to happen. So I'm trying. And again, there's a difference between now this year and next season and this offseason, which makes this offseason really, really important. But they're still in a spot where you're gutting this thing down to the studs. Last year may have set you back. Honestly, it did. I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't in any way say, I don't need those 12 wins. Let's have a really crappy year last year and another bad one this year because of draft picks. And by the way, I am a draft pick guy, as you probably know. I am suck for picks. That doesn't guarantee anything, but at this point, that is what I'm all about. And look, you can be mad at the results, but you can still be patient. And I think that's one of the things that gets lost a lot in the middle of this year. And that's fine. Right? You're watching what Drake May did with the 5 touchdowns on Sunday. You're seeing him now elevated to a heavy favorite and MVP, and you're seeing Caleb Williams and the Bears. And, listen, there's still some ups and downs. I get all of this, but injuries are beyond an excuse. It is absolutely a major reason as to why the Commanders are sitting here and we are waiting for the final game of the regular season on Sunday against the Eagles, where it matters to the Eagles in terms of their seeding and it matters to the team zero, other than who's going to get more good things on film or bad things on film and make a case for them to be a part of this Commanders organization next year. That's it. That is what we're talking about. And yeah, it sucks, but also we're experts at this, aren't we? We know how to embrace these bad games late in the year. The difference is now, though, and it's a reason why I'm mad at the results, but I'm still patient. It's because this is what a rebuild is. And I would rather have an organization that embraces a rebuild, that understands we got to embrace the suck for a little while before we get to a point where we can actually be a true contender. Because, yeah, it was fun last year, and, yeah, this offseason felt a little bit different. But in some ways, Adam Peters in this front office had to then look at everything heading into this year and say, we're driving on 2 roads at the same time, and the GPS is getting real confused, right? We've got the rebuild road, because it was a team that, as you've seen, has no depth, lacks talent at a lot of positions, even when you're talking about starters. But yet they won 12 games, and you have to talk about the bigger picture while also still trying to pay your star wide receiver and keep him around for a while and find the balance that's there. That was a lot. You want to be one or the other. And now we know what they are. There's no more playing games. There's no more, we're just maybe like a wide receiver and a edge rusher. No. This team needs a lot. And what's going to happen on Sunday is it's going to be an opportunity to see more Johnny Newton, to see more Bill Krosky-Merritt, to see more of these younger guys get opportunities. Maybe Ben Sinnott, who knows? I mean, they desperately want this guy to be an actual tight end for them, but we haven't seen that consistently. It's another opportunity for that. For, guess what? A rebuilding team. They are a rebuilding team. And you can just accept it now. We can just accept that this is what this team is. We're not sitting here talking about, at least right now, who the quarterback of the future is. I don't care that Jaden Daniels has been hurt all year at the moment, because we know that we've got the most talented quarterback at this position since RG3 in his rookie year. And again, I love seeing what Kirk Cousins has done with the Falcons since he came back out there as a starter. 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I'm rooting for him. They won last night because of Bijan Robinson. We're not sitting here going, well, we've got to think about paying Kirk now. And if we don't, who's going to be our guy? At least we know what the ceiling is. The ceiling for Jaden Daniels, it's a lot higher than what it was for Kirk, right? Can we all agree on that? I think so. But, there's a lot of these comparisons that I've had people, whether it's on, my podcast or any of these other shows I'm doing, and it's just like, oh, well, the 49ers, they've had injuries, and, they're, oh, God, look at how they've survived. Well, of course they have. They went through years of a rebuild. And this is another example, too, right, of this recency bias where we're going to get so worked up. And I get it. Again, I get it. We're going to get so worked up on the season that Drake May has had, and the season that Caleb Williams has had, and the season that Jaden Daniels has had, and panic and think it's all going to fall apart. Everything is crumbling down again. And then you look at the 49ers and go, well, they've had injuries. Oh, God. And look, they're still winning. Yeah, because they have depth, and they've been building this roster for how long? Kyle Shanahan, it feels like, has been there for 2 decades now. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch signed 6-year deals and had, multiple years of Nick Mullins at quarterback. And, go down the list of bad quarterbacks that were there in San Francisco early. Oh, and by the way, have failed on multiple quarterbacks they thought were going to be their franchise guy, including Trey Lance, who they traded up for and was terrible. They got bailed out by Brock Purdy. But they've also got a lot of other talent and a lot of other depth on that team. So, the football gods came for their payment this year with Washington. That's it. The football gods came and had the receipts and said, now it's time for you to pay us back. That's how this thing works. Like, it's not ideal. It's not something you want to go through, but eventually you have to go through an actual rebuild. And look, I've said this for years about the Wizards, right? The Wizards never embraced a rebuild until now. And does it suck? Yeah. But do they at least have some level of a direction? Now, yes, you have to then build on that direction. But, they've just hoarded young players and said, let's see who sticks. They're throwing darts at a dartboard. But I would rather have an organization do that and say, let's see who's going to be a part of our future, than keep giving Bradley Beal long extensions that he doesn't deserve. Or if you're the Commanders and football team Redskins, going back in the history, paying guys for that one extra deal that they didn't actually need, right? This is no longer a safe haven for one extra deal for veterans in the NFL in Washington. It's not. You're not getting Bruce Smith, one extra big contract, Mark Carrier, Deion Sanders, guys that shouldn't have gotten paid and still did. And it was like, well, let me get one extra deal and get there a couple of years. Jason Taylor. Go down the list. We could name a million of these guys. But this is a huge offseason. This is a really, really important offseason for them, because there is public perception, and that does matter, because this organization, I know for a fact, cares about the public perception of what you think about them. And they should. They've got an ear to the ground. They know what you're saying on social media, and they know what the history of this team is, and that's good. That's self-awareness. That's not a bad thing. But you then have to take this and use it as momentum. You have to take the fact that we're sitting here heading into week 18 of the NFL season, which, by the way, is unnecessary. Explain that later. And looking at it going, this game only matters for individual players and draft positioning. So this offseason really does matter, because you can't rest on building culture forever. Like, it's important, because let's be real, when Adam Peters and Dan Quinn and everybody came in, the ceiling was low. The standards were low. There wasn't much to offer other than, we'd like people not to make fun of this team anymore. That's really what it came down to. They've done a lot of this on the fly. They've shown that they can build a winner. But, do you care this offseason about 12 wins a couple of seasons ago? No. And let's also remember, we are now, and this is proof that time flies, good God, we are now going to be entering, after this game on Sunday, the offseason that leads into, wait for it, Jaden Daniels' 3rd year in the NFL. 3rd year already. So time flies, and you've got to move quickly, and you've got to take advantage of all of the opportunities that you have. And that means addressing the needs that you have this offseason. It's not quarterback, but it is a million other things, especially defensively. The momentum has to show up in the results because that's what you want. That's what I want. That's what everybody in this fan base wants. And that's really what the NFL expects too, because let's be honest with ourselves. If you're looking at the Commanders, how many standalone games did they have? How many primetime games did they have? How desperate was the NFL to market this team in one of the biggest markets in the country, in one of the most passionate fan bases, yet tortured fan bases in the country? It was, okay, all right, the Commanders, look at them. They are ready to go. This team is, oh, God, everybody's hurt. They're bad this year. So this stuff takes a little bit longer than you maybe expect, but you also don't have a ton of time in the NFL. And by the way, Jaden Daniels' contract, that's going to be a conversation moving forward. You think it was a lot about Terry McLaurin last year? Just wait. It's already going to be a whisper really soon. Look, guys are still at least competing as we head into this final week of the season. Individual players don't tank. Organizations and front offices either think about it or lean into it. Now, I get it. Adam Peters is watching this team and wants them to win in the moment, but you think he ain't thinking about having a better draft pick? Of course he is. Got a lot of cap space, better draft picks, and a massively, massively important offseason coming up for this team because it's not just about what you did on the field. It's what these other teams that have young quarterbacks that were in the same draft class as Jaden Daniels, it's what they're doing too, because in the end, public perception matters to every organization in the NFL. Some more than others, as we've seen, but in the end, it matters no matter what. But you are still seeing guys compete. You are still seeing individual players care about these games, which shows you have at least built a culture that's there. But you got to build on it. You have to be able to build on it. All right, we still have another week in the NFL regular season, but I got a better plan for the NFL that they need to quickly adopt to make it better for all of us. Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980. Nick Ash, you in for Kevin Sheehan. Just looking at some of the YouTube comments here. This YouTube, here it's going to be a thing.
First time that's ever happened on this show. My God, Nick, look at you.
What, looking at the YouTube comments?
Yes, looking at the YouTube comments.
I'm a big YouTube comment guy. Listen, you know me. I'm into all forms of media here. Okay, it's
good.
We get, it's very important. Danny Collins brings up a good point. First place schedule next year going to take care of May, just like it took care of Jaden. To a point, yes, it's true. I would say that defense is certainly better in New England than what we got going on in Washington. But look, off seasons can change a lot very quickly. But it is important to remember. See, here's the thing. Here's one, and that was one of my big points this offseason. Kevin and I talked about this a lot over in the offseason too. It was like, I was like, yo, dude, are you worried at all about this sophomore slump with him? And he wasn't really all that concerned about it. And I was like, here's what worries me more: the schedule and the quarterback matchups. And, there's so many other factors. Here's what I hate. And I've done these before over the years. The schedule release shows and playing the game in April about win-loss. It's the worst. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense because we have no idea what the NFL season is going to look like. Spoiler alert, we have no idea what the NFL season is actually going to look like. But as Danny brings up right there in that comment, and I think it's a great point, that can change. When a team is playing in a position where their schedule is easier, and here's the key. You can judge a schedule. I'm not looking at wins that a team had last year when we talk about strength of schedule in the offseason. What I am looking at is the quarterback matchups. And when you look at who Washington beat last year, who this Commanders team beat at quarterback last year versus who they saw at quarterback this year, whether or not Jaden Daniels was actually out on the field or not, there's a big difference. Oh, there is a big difference in the quarterback matchups this year versus last year. And with this trash defense that they've thrown out there on the field this year, they've had to play from behind, and it didn't matter who was at quarterback. Now, has that altered game plans? Would that have altered things for Jaden Daniels and his approach, whether he's out there on the field or not? Absolutely. Did it alter the way that he played maybe at times where he dislocated his elbow because he had nobody to throw the football to against Seattle and ran for his life and looked frustrated? Yes, there were so many factors that go into this year that it's easy for us to look at Drake May. It's easy for us to look at Caleb Williams. Quite frankly, both of those teams more established, maybe better coached, but definitely more established roster-wise than what Washington's got. So, yeah, we will see what the Patriots look like next year and what Drake May looks like with more film and against better teams, better defenses. That can make all the difference in the world. And, this stuff just doesn't happen overnight. But I get it, right? Because it's not like we haven't been sitting there suffering for how many decades? So, it's great to be like, well, I got to be patient more. But it's hard to be patient when you've already been patient for 2 decades. Again, the difference is still leadership at the very top. Attitude reflects leadership. I love that quote. It's one of my favorites from Remember the Titans. It's probably been used other places, but that's where I remember it. And it's true. I've worked in places where that works. I've seen organizations where that works. It's human nature. So they still have, it's still a better position for this team now than where they've ever been before under the Dan Snyder era. But yeah, we'll see what a first place schedule does for the Patriots next year. But, it's really going to suck. Here's the thing, though, and I will say this, then I'll move on from Drake May, because I know people get very angry, and that's good. This is what I like to see because it means you feel the way I feel about all this. When you're looking at a regular season team versus a playoff team, it's very different. Young quarterbacks, just like young teams in the NBA. I've talked about this a lot. It's great in the regular season. You got to get your bumps and bruises. You got to build those scars in the playoffs. Wait till the playoffs for Drake May. It's going to be a lot different. It's a lot different. Games are officiated differently. Game plans are different. Pressure is different. It doesn't mean that he can't handle it. But let's see Caleb Williams and Drake May in the playoffs. And we'll see how your opinion is on where all of these young quarterbacks are from that draft class when it's all said and done. Because you can hang your hat on an NFC Championship game for the Commanders and Jaden Daniels in his rookie year. So it matters. Look, we got 17 games. We're moving to 18 games in the NFL. So think about this right now. If the NFL was sitting here with an 18-game schedule, we would still have 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks of regular season NFL. Now, I know this is, whenever I say this, There are people that look at me and they, oh, gasp. Like, how could you say this? It's like the emperor's new clothes. And if you don't know that story, remember it as a kid. It still works with real things today. I'm going to say the thing that a lot of people don't want to say. We can have too much football. We can. Forget 18 games if you're the NFL. Do we really need 2 more weeks of 75% of the teams eliminated? Now, granted, there are 2 playoff spots still up for grabs this weekend. That's it. 2. And I get it. You add an extra game, and you would sit there and go, well, it stretches out the playoff scenarios, if you will, and people will sit there and have more meaningful. No. Let's stop. Forget 18 games in the NFL. Screw the 17 games. Go back to 16 and expand the NFL playoffs. I am begging the NFL to do this. More than anything else, forget a team in London, for more international games, more meaningful playoff games in the NFL would be such a better product than, hey, we've got the Browns and we've got the name another team that's eliminated, doesn't matter. And they're playing the last week of the regular season. Nobody wants to watch the Jets this weekend. Nobody wants to watch the Titans unless you're looking at the teams they're playing, looking at playoff seeding or number 1 pick versus number 2 pick and draft position. Who cares? Give us more meaningful playoff football. I am desperate for the NFL to do this. Expand the playoffs. And really, we got Justin Herbert sitting this weekend. And I get, no matter what, whatever that last week of the regular season is, there will be teams that no matter what will be playing for nothing. No matter how long or how short the season is, I understand that. But the difference is if you're expanding these regular season games and this schedule, and we're talking 18, and then when does it stop? Do you go to 19? Do you go to 20? Are we adding 2 and 3 bye weeks and we're playing into March? Give us wild card weekend, and they started calling it super wild card weekend. Give us super wild card weekend and regular wild card weekend. We can work on the branding later. I don't care. It's fine. But give us more standalone games with teams that actually deserve it. Like, I get you've got some of these Saturday games and they fluff the schedule and give a bunch of different extra things. We don't need it. This is, and hear me out on this. It's more than just about meaningful games for you to watch. If you have more standalone games for teams that actually deserve it versus the concept, because we all know why they wanted to expand to 17. We all know why the NFL wants to go to 18 games. If you're watching on YouTube, it's money. I'm doing the old Johnny Manziel money thing. It's money because an extra game for a team that has no business playing at that point in the season because they've been far eliminated from the playoffs. The Raiders don't deserve a game this weekend. Neither do the Jets, neither do the Titans. They've been atrocious and no one wants to watch them, even their fans. I got a friend that is a Jets fan and lives right next door to me, and he hates his team, as he should. He doesn't want to watch them. He just wants to see what quarterback they draft that they'll inevitably screw up. But the whole concept is, right, it was like playing for the 8 seed for a while in the NBA. Well, you get an extra playoff game, makes a few extra millions at the gate, and people show up. No. Reward the teams that actually deserve to be playing more. Screw that. Earn the extra money. Oh, well, you're 2-14 and you're the Raiders, and let's give you 1 extra game and then maybe 2 extra games. Because that's what we really want is 2 more weeks of the Raiders actually being on a football field. Or the Browns or the Titans. We don't want to watch any of those teams. This is how you push back on tanking. Because what could happen is here, because hear me out, everybody talks about tanking in the NBA. Oh, God, all these teams, at least the NBA's tried to do something. In the NFL, you have the worst record, barring a tie and a tiebreaker, you have the number 1 overall pick. So for everybody that wants to sit there and be like, my God, the tanking in the NBA. How about the NFL? You know what your position is going to be in the draft based on your record. It's that simple. So if you were to instead extend the playoffs, and the incentive is to be a playoff team versus being a really terrible team that plays in the regular season, it's like, oh, well, we're going to get that extra game, so it's fine. No. Give a team an extra incentive to play a meaningful game. Like, okay, you want an extra game? You want to make some extra money? Got to make the playoffs. Got to do it. And there's going to be teams that are being long out of it and won't matter. And sure, if that doesn't work, that extra game didn't really matter anyway for that team. They clearly wanted to lose and clearly wanted to tank more than they actually wanted to play 1 extra game and make some extra money. Look, we know NFL owners run the show. Roger Goodell is their puppet. He's always been their puppet. But listen, I'll tell you this right now. You want to pay me over $40 million a year? I'll be a puppet for billionaires too. I have my limits, but I'll do it. And you would too. Don't act like you wouldn't. You wouldn't take Roger Goodell's job for that, but that's really what he is. And these owners are like, hey, we want to make more money guaranteed. It's like subscription models today. Everybody's got a subscription model. Literally everybody. Cars are now giving you subscription models to their apps. Oh, you want heated seats? You got to pay a fee. This is basically the extra guaranteed income for owners to have a 17th and then soon to be, it's guaranteed, an 18th game. And it ruins it for us as the fans. Because, yeah, did you look at the early slate this past week? If you didn't pay attention to it, I'll tell you, it was terrible. We had a few good games that meant something. And yes, I understand that eventually there is going to be a point where no matter what, there are going to be meaningless games at the end of a season. But at least shorten that and get us to the meat. I'm tired of all the I'm tired of all the little, appetizers. Screw it. Bring me the steak. Give me the meat. Give me the real meal. And that's playoff football. Multiple weeks of wild card weekend versus a week 18 where the Raiders are actually playing football. And I get it, right? Everybody loves it. Like, you can't unsay it. Oh, but we love football. What do we do without football? I don't know. Go outside and breathe some fresh air. Listen, I love football and I love sports. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. But damn, don't you want to watch quality? Like, okay, we got 1 million shows on Netflix and everywhere else. Are they all good? Do you watch all of them or do you watch the good shows, the shows that you like, the shows that interest you? No, you watch the good stuff. There's a reason why Stranger Things has a season 5. Haven't started yet. Need to watch it at some point. Got to finish it out. But people watch that because it's a good show. There's a lot of trash on Netflix too. Far fewer people watch those because it's not good. The product of these teams that are clearly tanking, clearly giving their young guys an opportunity to play. Nobody wants to watch that, even the fans of their own teams. So give us good stuff. Give us the games that matter. And yeah, okay, so you're letting in more playoff teams. Cool. I'd rather watch a team that's 7-9 in the playoffs than have a team that's 2-14 playing a team that's 4-12 late in the season. Get that out of the way sooner. Rip the Band-Aid off and give us the real thing. I'm tired of all the little stupid entrees brought to the table, like a 7-course meal. You ever been to one of those things? Done that before. It's the worst. No, I want the real food. I want a small little hole-in-the-wall restaurant with great food. Give me the meat. Give me the good stuff. Can't stand it. And I love football, but we can love good quality football. You deserve better than trash football late in an NFL season. You deserve more playoff football that actually matters. And hey, if it's a blowout, there's always going to be blowouts, just like the college football playoff. They expanded the college football playoff. Did JMU belong there? No, they didn't. But at least that game meant more than a meaningless Pop-Tart bowl. Though they do have an edible giant Pop-Tart, so at least they did that. All right, look, all this talk about young guys getting a chance these last few games for the Commanders, but there's actually a bigger name that has something to prove on Sunday against the Eagles. Who that is next? Nick Ash, you in for Kevin.
All right. What day is it? It's Tuesday, everybody. Last night, the Wizards, they fall to the Phoenix Suns, but it was not a lost game as Trey Johnson went off in the first half, shooting 7 of 8 from the field with 18 points. He finished a new career high of 24, making all 5 of his threes. Another ethical loss for the Wiz, 115-101. They fall to the Phoenix Suns. Meanwhile, the Caps, they got out to an early lead last night thanks to first period goal from Tom Wilson. Quickly, it was matched by Florida. Back and forth battle in the second. Caps take the lead early in the third, but a 3-goal flurry from Florida puts the Caps away. They fall 5-3. Right now, an update in the NFL. Riley Leonard is getting the call for Week 18. He'll be the Colts starter versus the Texans following the Colts' elimination from the playoffs. And college football, ex-Raiders offensive coordinator Chip Kelly is joining the staff at Northwestern as their offensive coordinator. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Nick Ash, you in for Kevin Sheehan. Yes, I will, Max, look at the YouTube comments quite a bit, and I will just say this. There's a lot about the defense right now. You can watch
there's always a lot about the defense in there.
Listen, it's true. Look, this Commanders defense, we knew wasn't stopping anybody. So I regularly, every single game, not that I'm the only one, but it was became my bit on the podcast that I do, Commander Squad. Little plug there, ding, ding. And the discrepancies, if I can use a big Kevin Sheehan word, the discrepancies were astronomical between whoever the Commanders played and, well, themselves when it came to literally every stat. I mean, time of possession and, first downs and simple things like, points, the points that you have to score, the points that you stop another team from scoring. All of these things actually mattered. And, when you're digging yourselves holes as a team, you got to dig out the rest of the way. And, occasionally you can make that work. But are you going to be able to do that every single week? when everybody's hurt and defense can't stop anybody, and, the offense is predicated around a starting quarterback that's dynamic, that's not out there, and your franchise wide receiver that you just paid $30 million a year to missed most of the time, and, they don't have a lot of depth at wide receiver. There's a lot of things that were stacked against this team. And it just, again, it's the pimple came to a head, and we went, oh, they got no depth. If you were wondering, they got no depth. Now, there was turnover from last year, too. It's not like this was the same team that they had last year, but they did go out and address some needs. Listen, Deebo Samuel was great this year, but this is also likely Deebo Samuel's last game in a Commander's uniform on Sunday. Barring a miracle, this is it. And it's not because he shouldn't be here. It's not because he hasn't earned a roster spot next year. And quite frankly, it's not like he hasn't lived up to the expectations I know I certainly had for him this season. But unless he takes a serious discount, spoiler alert, he probably won't. This is his last chance for a big deal, and he's probably going to take it somewhere else. Maybe it's the Panthers. Goes back home that way. And again, I said it, and I will still say it. The Deebo Samuel is one of the biggest steals this entire offseason in the NFL. A fifth-round pick for a guy that's as versatile as he is, that could be used in as many ways as he is. He fits this roster perfectly. But it's always down to the money. Every time. And I don't know if you remember this, but there was this guy, I think his name was Terry McLaurin. Yeah, and he turned 30 and got paid a lot of money, and it was a drawn-out process that everybody hated last year. You think this team's going to want to go through it again? Do you think for 1 second that Adam Peters is going to be like, you know what? Deebo's turning 30. You want $20 million a year, which is looked at as the general market price of what he could get out there. I think we're going to drag this on into the offseason, maybe into training camp, and have a conversation. Now, granted, I know we're talking extension versus holdout, and somebody else could pay him. I understand all those things. But in reality, this team needs Deebo Samuel, but it may not be the right price. Because after Terry McLaurin, you got Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey. And listen, I love both of them. I think they both have great potential. I think Luke McCaffrey showed before he got hurt that he can be a legit wide receiver in the NFL that gets consistent targets, that can make big plays, and obviously is a return man, same as Jalen Lane, dynamic return man. I mean, when Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey were out there together, this was the best return group in the NFL. It was. At any moment, Luke McCaffrey breaks off a 30 or 40-yard run return. It was a regular thing for them. But they still do have to prove that they can be consistent wide receivers. Now, Deebo made sense for this offense. The price was low, but money will likely not make this make sense, if that makes sense. You get what I'm saying? Because $20 million a year, turning 30, it's going to be really tough for Adam Peters and this organization to justify that kind of money. And I know that they got the money to spend. And if you've looked at the free agent class, it ain't that great. It's just not. There's not a lot. There's no T. Higgins out there. I would have loved to see them pay T. Higgins. I mean, right, would you have complained if they paid T. Higgins? Would he got paid? No, nobody would. But maybe this becomes a situation where if you're this Commander's front office, you're looking around going, we got, a Romeo Doubs or an Alec Pierce or a Jawan Jennings out there, and maybe we go and sign them for a discounted rate. And we'll say discounted by less than $20 million a year. Remember, this team does have a lot of cap space and has a lot of needs. Do you sign one of them and then see what Debo's market is? And maybe you get lucky and he goes out in the open market and no team really looks and says that he's worth the money. And then you kind of get like, that's the only scenario that I have in my head right now where I could say that's how Debo Samuel comes back, because he's going to go out in the open market. He's going to look around and say, can I get $20 million a year? Can I maximize my income? And remember, that's what Washington used to be. And I've gone over that list of names. We've all heard that name. Right? Deion Sanders, Mark. You know what? I won't even do it. You don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. We don't want to do that. But if they play this smartly, that's the only way that Debo comes back. Listen, I will tell you this now. I'll go on record, and I've said it. I think Debo Samuel was a steal for them, and I would love to see him back. But it still has to be at the right price, even with all the cap space you have. Just because you got a nice raise in life doesn't mean you go out and buy a new car, unless it works for you financially. Make smart financial decisions. If they look at this season, you're looking at the Commanders, and you go, man, we were bad this year, weren't we? Remember that 12-win season? Let's go spend all the money. Let's go spend everything. Like you won the freaking lottery. That's bad business. Don't do it. Don't do it. Now, it doesn't mean that you just hoard all the money, right? You're not going to be greedy. Say, nobody gets it. We're not spending any money on anybody. Well, then your team's going to win 5 games next year, 4 games next year, and the fan base is going to want to completely ignore you forever. You would earn the right to do that. We all would. Not me. I'd still have to talk about it. But, you know, this is something this team has to find the balance in, where it's no longer going to be about, hey, let's make decisions based on winning now, but also building for the future. That's what last offseason was. This is a rebuild. This is a full rebuild, as it should have been from the beginning, and really as it was. It's not like they came into last season and went out and spent a bunch of big money on a bunch of free agents like Dan Snyder did back in 2000. I mean, they got a bunch of guys on prove-it deals, short-term deals, 1-2-year deals. I loved that approach. And there are guys that earned it. Some of them earned it and they left. Jeremy Chin, gone. You know, Dexter Fowler, gone. Like, name guys that went and got paid somewhere else. But the reality here is now they still have to make the smart decisions, but understand that being competitive is going to matter to this fan base, and you have a scarred fan base that wants to see smarter decisions made. Because, listen, I heard it plenty this year. Oh, God, it's back to the Dan Snyder area. No, it's not. But this front office knows that you're thinking about that I'm thinking about that everyone's thinking about what used to be. And you don't want to see same old all over again. So they got to be really cautious with Debo Samuel. And again, like most things in life come down to money, right? You may want to buy a house. Interest rate's too high. You're like, ain't going to work. You got to wait. Same thing. Debo Samuel's average annual value, that AAV that everybody loves to talk about, be like a high interest rate. Yeah, I think we'll pass on $20 million a year, Debo, but come in at 16, 17. Now, I get it. If you start getting to the point where it came that way with Terry McLaurin, when you're going, okay, are we really fighting over $1 million a year? Like, for this organization, they can afford it. So some of it just becomes a situation where, like, how much of it is a power grab? How much of it is winning the negotiation? But, like, that's going to matter, because also keep in mind with this team this offseason that it's not just a Debo decision. Now, he's going to be a free agent, but you got a lot of guys entering contract years, all right? Laramie Tunsil's going to be one of them. Frankie Louvu is going to be another. Now, Frankie Louvu this year versus last year, not the same. Frankie Louvu more dominant last year. I think we all can agree on that. Laramie Tunsil, pretty damn good this year. And you want to protect your quarterback. You want to protect his blind side. You gave up assets to bring in a Pro Bowl left tackle in Laramie Tunsil. So they're going to pay him. They want to pay him. That's going to happen. So some of this cap space conversation for the Commanders is going to go away when they start paying some other guys. Now, a lot of decisions are going to have to be made, a lot of issues that are still going to have to work out. It's also whether or not look, maybe Debo just doesn't even want to come back, and this is a moot point. We're just like, well, there he goes. Bye. But he does add value to this offense. He does add value to this team. And listen, I'm all for versatile guys. I mean, look at what Bijan Robinson did last night. Look at what Bijan Robinson has done. Again, not the same player as Debo, but look at what Bijan Robinson has done his entire career. Like, Again, I said at the top of the show, like, people laughed when the Falcons drafted Bijan Robinson. People laughed when the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. Are any of those people laughing now? I felt like Mugatu and Zoolander. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. You get that reference, good for you. I felt like I was taking crazy pills when I'm looking around going, why? Why would you not draft these guys where you were in Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson? Look how versatile they are. They're not just running backs. They can be pass catchers. You can line them up in the slot. You can line them up at wide receiver. They can make plays for you as a little dump off bubble screen, whatever. Like, you can do all these things. Game-changing plays. We saw a 93-yard run from Bijan Robinson last night. Now, again, Debo is not in that same category. I'm not saying that he is. He's 30. He's more of a wide receiver, but he's built like a running back. He can play both positions. Versatility matters in sports today. It matters in the NFL. It matters in the NBA. They talk about positionless basketball in the NBA, right? We've seen so much of that now where centers can run the floor like a point guard, like Nikola Jokic, who hurt his knee last night. We'll see what happens with that today. Right? You know I'm an NBA guy. I love the NBA. I love seeing what the NBA has evolved into. Not everybody does, but the reality is you have more versatile big men now than you've ever had before. You've got 7-footers like Victor Wembanyama that look like Michael Jordan in Space Jam with the way his arm stretches out, and he plays like a point guard. Nikola Jokic, same thing. Running backs in the NFL have become that, where the best running backs in the NFL are also wide receivers. They're versatile. It's what makes them valuable. And in a pass-happy league that's only going to continue to be a pass-happy league, it's all about scoring points. It's all about big, game-changing plays. We saw that from somebody like Bijan Robinson. Now, if you can find more players like that, Deebo Samuel at a cheaper price, that makes sense. That fits a role. That is what you want to have if you were building this offense. That is what Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was supposed to be, and at times we could see. But so there is value in somebody like Deebo. But the question becomes, what does he look like? What does he look like in this offense? What does that price tag look like? What does he do on Sunday? Because, that's the lasting effect. Make no mistake about it. Matt Stafford can still make a case for MVP, even with what happened last night, and maybe overtake Drake May. And Deebo Samuel can still make a more lasting impression if he has a monster game against the Eagles, to where he may get priced out in Washington. Or they may be willing to pay him $20 million a year just to have him back in that offense. Maybe it's a shorter deal. Maybe it's something that, you pay more up front, it's less down the road, less guaranteed money, whatever the case is. You can manipulate these contracts in the NFL to make it work. But that lasting image of Deebo Samuel, good or bad, against the Eagles, especially if he's used as a running back a little bit more, wide receiver, makes some big plays, return game, all of these things. I'm a big fan of Deebo Samuel, but I'm a big fan of Deebo Samuel at the right price. And I can guarantee you the organization's going to look at it the same way. They got to be smart, but they've got to be aggressive this offseason. All right, we'll ask CBS Sports' Brian DeArdo whether or not Deebo could stay next, but also Ravens or Steelers in the AFC North. Still got some big games and some playoff positioning and spots up for grabs Week 18 in the NFL. We'll talk to Brian next. Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan. Nick Ash, you in for Kevin Sheehan. Navy Mo on Twitter wants to know why the Commanders are operating like a poverty franchise when other teams, like, it's always the Eagles, right? It comes back to the Eagles. Listen, the Commanders are rebuilding a team that also has to compete with a very aggressive front office in Howie Roseman, one of the best GMs, not just in the NFL, but in sports. And it's true. Like, they're going to have to spend, but you got to spend smartly. You can't just go throwing money around. We've seen how that works in the NFL. We've seen how that works with this franchise. But it's true. That has now become the trend. I mean, Chike Kamara, hope I said your name right, buddy, on YouTube. It should be noted that's why the Commanders don't have any depth. They did not spend. Meanwhile, the Patriots did. They did. The Patriots built a much better team, and we're seeing the results, both Drake May and everybody else, with the way those teams have built. And don't think for one second that this Commanders organization doesn't know they got to spend. It's just how they spend it is really important because, as we've all seen, you can waste your money and the team can go absolutely nowhere, and then you end up right back in the spot you're in now versus where a lot of teams are in the NFL, which is, looking at playoff positioning or at least playoff spots as we head into Week 18 of the NFL season. Brian DeArdo jumps on with us now, NFL writer for CBS Sports, and I'll get to the Commanders with you in a bit, but let's be honest, we got actually like meaningful NFL games coming up in Week 18 of the NFL season. I do want to start with this with you, Brian, though, before we even get into any of these games. I am a huge supporter, and I've been yelling this for years, controlled yell, of course. I would much rather see expanded playoffs than an 18th game in the NFL regular season. If I gave you the choice, Brian, what would you prefer? An extra week of playoff football or an extra week of regular season NFL?
Well, hey, great to be on with you. I'm emphatically in support of what you're saying. I do not understand at all this 18th week. I mean, there was a few weeks ago I was looking at the standings. A third of the league was already out of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Like, how is that good for the league? And, we talk about player safety and trying to improve it. I do think on a day in, day out basis, the league has made a lot of strides to help player safety with the limited padded practices, with the technology advances with the helmets. However, you can't tell me you're all in favor of player safety when you continue to add games to the schedule. Not only did they add an extra game a few years ago to the regular season, they added this extra. They expanded the playoff field. So no, I'm entirely with you. And look, I mean, the NHL has this 16-team playoff where I think more than half the league makes the playoffs. Basketball, it's the same thing. I would be in favor of that. Take an extra week off, and I don't think anybody would really oppose it, except for the owners, of course. But no, But the sad thing is, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen, if anything, you're going to get an 18-game season, which is inevitable at this point, and then you might get an expanded playoffs. And so I think you're right. I think what's going to happen is you'll get an expanded playoffs, which is 16 teams, and then you're going to get an 18-week regular season with an extra bye week there. So you'll have a 20-week regular season in a 16-team playoff tournament. So if you really like football, buckle up because you're going to get a lot more of it in the next couple of years.
I know. It's inevitable, man. You and I are absolutely aligned when it comes to exactly the way the NFL actually should approach this. All right, I want to look at last night's game with you. Falcons, they had a 21-0 lead, and I thought, well, this game is over. Then again, we've had some of these primetime games where you think a game is over and then absolutely makes no sense at the end. Atlanta does come out with the win. The bigger thing here, though, from just a big picture, I know Atlanta, there's still a weird way that they can get into the playoffs. I want to look at the Rams first, though, and the Matt Stafford situation, and really this team. This Rams team and Matt Stafford, it's almost like this rebirth. I saw this thing recently about sort of how Matt Stafford takes care of his body and this like zero gravity, red light therapy that he does. And, we're seeing more and more athletes understand how important that is. Matt Stafford has been in the MVP conversation for a while. If you look at odds, which some people do and some people don't, Drake May is now the heavy favorite to win MVP. That matters here in DC because, well, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, we know the tie-in that's going to be there. Does Matt Stafford have any shot next week? It sounds like guys are going to play for the Rams. Do you think that Matt Stafford has any shot to still win the MVP, or is this basically Drake May's award to win?
I think it's done. I think that Seattle game a week and a half ago changed everything as far as who's going to get the number one seed for the NFC and who potentially is going to win league MVP. I think if they win, and it's no fault to Matt Stafford. I mean, they had the lead big. He was playing really well, and people seem to forget that he didn't have Devontae Adams in that game, and he didn't have Devontae Adams last night. And I think for people that watched, that saw, I mean, Adams looked good during pregame. He went out there, ran some routes. You wonder if that's just the Rams being extra cautious, knowing that they couldn't get the number 1 seed anymore at this point. It would take Stafford having like a Herculean individual performance, like a 6-7 touchdown game where he breaks some sort of NFL record for him to win the league MVP this year. And I don't really know. I think yesterday's game probably cemented it, but the irony is it really, as far as the standing perspective, didn't really matter that much, the outcome of last night's game. And again, they come out on the losing side, but it was really to no fault of Stafford. He at least had one interception that I remember last night and wasn't really great in the first half, but he led a great comeback. And I mean, Puka Nacua, geez, if he can just complete that catch at the end, they kick the field goal there, tie the game, and who knows what happens. But, I think really, midway through the season, Jonathan Taylor was my league MVP. But here's the funny part. Speaking of running backs, Derrick Henry has 216 yards, 4 touchdowns in a game the Ravens absolutely need to win. If they go to Pittsburgh in Week 18, which that's the game I think that matters more than any other game being played this weekend, what if he goes off for another 150 and 3 touchdowns? Is this guy, should he get more MVP love? And the irony there, more so, he wasn't even selected to the Pro Bowl, which is kind of insane given the year that he's had. So, to me, if I was to pick now, I think May, you kind of have to give it to him given his success and the Patriots' success, which was unexpected. And then I think Henry, if they win, this weekend, he has a big game. He would be my runner-up, and you could argue that he would have a strong case for Offensive Player of the Year.
You know how the MVP is. It's really MVQ, most valuable quarterback, unfortunately. But I'm with you. I think more running backs have absolutely deserved the award, even like Jonathan Taylor a few years ago. Talking to Brian DiArdo, Nick Ash, you in for Kevin Sheehan here on the Team 980. All right, you mentioned Steelers-Ravens. Not just a rivalry game, but it's literally for a playoff spot coming up in Week 18. What do we know at this point in terms of Lamar Jackson's status, which obviously is really, really important? And when you look at that game, whether Jackson does play or not, where's the confidence level for you in terms of what team is kind of riding in? Because right now, I mean, the Ravens, they're winning games without Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley has been, he's won 2 starts. He's beat a couple of playoff teams here. It kind of feels like the Ravens, with the season that they had, I kept telling all my Ravens fan friends, I'm like, dude, this team could still win the division given the way the rest of it is. This is a game that obviously is everything for both of these teams.
There's a lot of storylines in this game. Lots. I mean, we're talking about potentially Aaron Rodgers' final game, right? If they, and the funny thing is, if you're looking at it from the Steelers' perspective, I mean, this whole offseason was built around having a team that could beat the Ravens after they gave up 299 rushing yards against them in the playoffs last year. So it's going to come down to one game to see if if the Aaron Rodgers signing, if the Derek Carman draft, all the other things the Steelers did this offseason, trading Minkah Fitzpatrick, getting Jalen Ramsey, if all of that added up to having a team that could beat Baltimore when it mattered most, stopping that running game when it matters most. And and that's where I found it laughable, the whole narrative after the Browns game, that they went out of their way. They sacrificed a win so that Myles Garrett wouldn't get a sack record. Do you think that the Steelers would rather lose that game and not give up a sack to Myles Garrett? There's no way they would. If you could tell them last week, you're going to give up 2 sacks to Myles Garrett, he's going to get the record, but you're going to win the division and have a week to rest and make the Ravens game moot, they would gladly have taken that. So I don't understand that conspiracy at all. But for the Steelers, it's everything. I mean, they lose this game, they're not making the playoffs. It's another season that ends in disappointment. And it'd be hard-pressed to imagine they'd bring back Aaron Rodgers again. So I know his legacy is very much already written, but if they win this game, it can be largely considered a success for the Steelers. They'd have another playoff game, try to end that drought. They lose this game, it's kind of a disaster again for them. For the Ravens, they've got an interesting predicament because there's no way Lamar Jackson's going to be 100% healthy for this game, or even 80% healthy, right? I mean, he's been dealing with ailments all year, his back, his foot, whatever it is. The question for them is, do they feel more comfortable with a Tyler Huntley who's much more healthy, or Lamar Jackson who's going to be compromised and hasn't had a lot of success historically against the Steelers? He obviously had more last year, but it's a tough question. I mean, Huntley hasn't had a lot of success against the Steelers either, but he has been playing well every time he's had a chance to play this season. So I think for John Harbaugh, Lamar's got to show him enough in practice this week to convince him that, okay, he's the right option, right? I mean, now you could always obviously take him out during the game, but that's where momentum comes into play and is enough damage already been done. But that's going to be the question this week is, does Lamar show enough in practice to convince Harbaugh that he's the right option?
And when it comes to both those teams, fans are mad at both coaches. Let's be honest with ourselves here. Do we see either one of those coaches, John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin, out if they were to lose that game?
I don't think so. If either was to lose their job, it would be Harbaugh. But to me, I don't think this season warrants him losing his job. I mean, if they were to lose, they're 8-9 in a season they started 1-5 and basically, went on a binge just to get. I mean, the fact that that they have a chance to win the division right now at 8-8, I think does speak volumes to the job they've done. I mean, they swung and missed so far with Mike Green. He was supposed to help that pass rush. They made a late season trade, Draymond Jones, to help the pass rush. That really hasn't helped a lot. So they've again, every team in the AFC North is flawed. I mean, the Bengals have had one of the league's worst defenses. They lost Burrow for 9 weeks. They would be, in my opinion, the division champions if Joe Burrow never got hurt. I mean, they would have probably won this division by 1 or 2 games easily. But that obviously didn't happen. So Harbaugh shouldn't lose his job, and I don't think he will lose his job. I just think they're going to write it up as a year where injuries happen and other things happen. They do need to be more aggressive as far as getting him better receivers, I think, moving forward. Mike Tomlin, it's not a question of will he be the coach in 26. To me, if they lose this game, that I think could determine whether or not the Steelers pick up his option that's been reported in March for 2027. If they don't pick up that option by March 1st, I believe Tomlin will be a lame duck coach for 2026. So I think that's the thing you're looking at is if they lose this game. Now, if they win this game and they potentially win a playoff game, there's no doubt they pick up that option. Tomlin's got 2 years left. I think that's more of the question, but I don't think either coach loses their job after this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's the expectations are obviously super high for these organizations, but at the same time, they've got coaches that a lot of teams would kill to have. Talking to Brian DeArdo on Team 980, Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan. All right, so Tampa's got to beat the Panthers and also have the Saints beat the Falcons in Week 18 for them to get in the playoffs. There's this weird scenario where the Panthers, the Bucks, and the Falcons all finish 8-9, which then there's a tiebreaker to give the Panthers the NFC South. That to me is, in terms of the chaos, is the one of the few that we do have that's really, really interesting, obviously, this weekend, given all those different scenarios. I kind of want to leave this open-ended for you a little bit, just given the way we've seen Tampa play recently and, the Falcons, obviously, last night. How do you see that playoff spot shaping out when we're done after Week 18?
This goes against everything I believe in, which is the team is what they are at this point. And Tampa's, 1-7 in their last 8. But every show I go on, I still have them making the playoffs because I just still believe in what they have, which is Evans and Godwin and Baker. It's like once they started getting healthy, it was like it was almost like all of those wins they got earlier this season, it's starting to even out now because they won so many one-possession games. But I think the fool's gold for me and others that believed in them was they were doing all that without a lot of their big-name players. Like, all right, once they get these guys back, they're going to go for the run. But then once they got those guys back, they started struggling. So I don't know. For whatever reason, I still believe in them. And I also believe that the Saints can beat the Falcons because I believe in what, Tyler Shuck has played exceptionally well. Chase Young and that defense has played really well. They've kind of found something there. New Orleans, no matter what, it's always a hard place to play. And I know Atlanta's playing a lot better. The irony, again, is that like Cincinnati in the North, the 2 worst teams in that division are probably the 2 best teams, Atlanta and New Orleans, which that's kind of the one thing we talked about at the start of this, the 18-game season. The longer season does kind of give teams a chance to figure it out and mount these kind of late rallies. So if there is a plus, I guess, in the longer season, which I don't like, it's that. You get the Falcons, who we all kind of written off a long time ago, has this kind of crazy chance to still make it. I do think Tampa's going to make it. I think they're going to win, and I think they're going to get the help they need to make the playoffs.
That's what everybody in DC wants to hear. Chase Young playing well. Nobody's got any scars from that whatsoever, Brian. How aggressive do you think the Commanders are going to be this offseason, given what's transpired this year for them?
Extremely aggressive. And I heard you talk about Howie Roseman and think, and the fact they're in a division with another GM who's aggressive. Let me throw something out to you. And listen, I honestly had not even thought about this till we started talking here. I'm literally going to throw this out. So last year, the Commanders, were kind of tepid in free agency, which I don't blame them. They just went to an NFC title game. I mean, them and the Lions kind of did the same thing, had really good seasons, kind of tried to run it back with the same team. Then injuries happened. Now they did swing and miss with the Deebo Samuel acquisition. So speaking of receiver, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that George Pickens stays in Dallas. I think for most of the season it was. But the fact they're not going to make the playoffs and the fact that he had that, kind of had that half rear-ended performance in prime time, which contributed to a loss for Dallas. What would you think about them swinging big and getting George Pickens here with Terry McLaurin and giving, Jaden Daniels, who you would hope at that point would be healthy, that kind of weaponry as far as receivers are concerned?
So, Brian, it's funny that you say that because I was talking about that earlier in the show with Deebo, and people are talking about maybe $20 million a year on the open market, and I just don't think the franchise is going to pay that. Though I think, given what he's been asked to do, he's been solid, especially for a fifth-round pick that they traded. All that aside, George Pickens is interesting for me, but one, they just paid Terry McLaurin, like you said, and all of that money they just paid him. So are they going to be willing to also then do that for George Pickens? And two, are they going to want to deal with the headache? Because the one thing this franchise, Brian, is so desperate to build is good culture. And I don't know if George Pickens is the guy that you want to bring in when the Steelers, who are all about culture, said, yeah, you're talented, but we don't want to deal with you anymore. Now there's the other side where it could be like, hey, we stole him away from the Cowboys. But I think it's not about performance. What would concern me is more about the fact that he's a headache, and he's that diva receiver that can give you a ton, but when he's not getting the targets that he wants, he starts complaining. And I think the franchise would absolutely take that into consideration.
I agree tenfold with you, and I don't think they should, but I think it's something that you explore because, again, he's extremely talented, and you're taking him away from a Dallas Cowboy team that is obviously an arch rival, a team that you need to beat to get headway as far as winning that division, making the playoffs. I totally agree. That being said, yeah, I mean, they do need to address that, as everybody knows, in the offseason. But here's a name I'm going to give you that I think will be available for them. The problem is, I think where they're going to draft, it would, I think, be a reach. And so maybe they trade back into the first round or they do something else. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith isn't, I don't think at this point is still even eligible to leave, which is kind of insane given how good he is. He's the best receiver in college football, hands down. But his teammate, Carnell Tate, will be available. And Carnell Tate, to me, very similar to Terry McLaurin at Ohio State, who was never kind of the number one guy. I think he was there when Michael Thomas was there. They overlapped, and I think Thomas obviously got more attention. But, Scary Terry's Scary Terry for a reason, and he has been so good for the Commanders. I know this season wasn't his best, and he had the contract thing, which I think in hindsight kind of foreshadowed kind of tumultuous season the Commanders are having. But he's a really – and again, no drama because you mentioned the distractions and the things with George Pickens and one to build culture. Carnell Tate's another culture guy like Terry. You bring him in, that's going to help the culture. And then obviously with Terry, they've got that Ohio State connection and the guy that can kind of help him get acclimated to the NFL. But that's not enough. I mean, I thought when they lost to Case, that was kind of an under-the-radar big loss. I think he's kind of helped round out that receiving core in Chicago. So that's not going to be enough. They're going to have to make multiple moves at the receiver position, among other positions. But as we all know in the NFL now, with free agency and the salary cap and everything, there's good players out there every offseason. You can turn over your roster and make every improvement you need every single offseason. It just depends on making, as you said, those smart decisions, those wise decisions that can help you now and make dividends now.
Yeah, George Pickens, insanely talented, but man, is he a pain in the ass for teams. That's for sure. Brian DeArdo, NFL writer for CBS Sports. We will be working on a campaign together to make sure we do not have 18 games in the NFL and more playoff games instead. Great stuff, Brian. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you. Anytime.
I see in the YouTube comments too here, Ann Hampton, no on Pickens. Yes, I agree. Listen, super talented, but the last thing you need is somebody that's going to complain about not getting enough targets on a team that's already teetering on the edge of good culture versus still a complete dumpster fire. So we need to pause on that. There's a scale, right? Think of one of those like old school scales where you've got like weight on both sides, right? There's the talent and there's the headache. Those are the two sides. The talent needs to outweigh the headache. And with a receiver, you want to make sure it outweighs it significantly because every receiver is going to want the ball thrown their way. But if they're decently talented and they think they're better than they are, it ain't worth it. Honestly, for George Pickens, it's super talented, but super big headache. And it's just stay away. But I get it. Like, they need a lot of weapons. They need a lot of things. This team is going to have to be aggressive this offseason. Oh, and by the way, have you looked at the free agent crop? It ain't that great. All right, so hear me out. I've got a scenario where the Commanders should just say, F them picks. I'll explain it next. Nick Ash, you in for Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980. Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan. Talk to David Harrison at noon. WSA 9 covers the Commanders. Locked On Commanders as well. Commanders Squad. Great podcast. You should check it out. I know another guy that is on that as well. So Kornheiser 10 on YouTube. I'm assuming that's not the actual Tony Kornheiser, but maybe. Come on, Nick. We got to bring in Neanderthals and the D lines and the O lines. You're right. We do. I absolutely agree with that. And I got a suggestion for you. And this is why I say the Commanders need to take the Rams' philosophy here, just for this player, though, and say F them picks, because it's going to cost you. But this will work out. Trade for Max Crosby. It is better than any free agent that you can get that will get after the quarterback in the NFL. He's pissed off at the Raiders. They're 2-14. They sent him home. He left the facility. He's mad. Said he wanted to stay there before. He don't want to be there anymore. Let's be honest with ourselves. Because free agency, it's not really the answer this offseason. Like, this is why I'm so adamant that the Commanders not just spend money because they can spend money. Now, that doesn't mean that you just sit there and hoard every dollar you have and say, we're not going to do anything. Well, you better do something. But the best answer for them is getting one of the fiercest pass rushers in the NFL and somebody that, had the Raiders not been as horrible as they were this year, I loved at the beginning of the year as potential defensive player of the year, and that's Max Crosby. Now, look, you're going to get him on a 3-year, $106 million deal. Just signed it. So you're not going to have to worry about another extension anytime soon. You've got the cap space to absorb all that money, which is great. And here's the key with Max Crosby. He's just 28 years old. You're getting a guy just entering his prime in the NFL. And if there is one thing, if not all things that the Commanders need, God, they need a pass rush, don't they? They need somebody that can be feared, that can get after the quarterback. It's like when Brian DiArdo was on last segment, he's talking about, oh, yeah, Chase Young and that Saints defense. I'm like, oh, my God. Can we not? It's just, you're just twisting the knife into old wounds here. Listen, give the Raiders 2 firsts and Daron Payne, because Daron Payne might get traded this offseason anyway. If it takes a first-round pick this year and a first-round pick next year and Daron Payne, I do it. Now, I get it, right? Because you're looking around and go, oh, no, we need picks. No. There are times where draft picks work, and there are times where they matter. And there are times where it's better that you get the guy that you know what he can do on the field. Because you ain't getting a Max Crosby in this draft right now. Like that, guaranteed will translate to the NFL. Thought Chase Young would be that guy, right? How'd that work out? Again, you swing and miss sometimes. Sometimes guys just don't exceed at the level they did in college. In the NFL, we see it all the time. But that was supposed to be Chase Young. Chase Young was still supposed to be a feared pass rusher in the burgundy and gold right now, and he's not. Max Crosby's 28. You got him locked in on a 3-year deal. And if it means giving up your first-round pick this year, you need a pass rusher. It's not like you're going out and getting a luxury pick. This is a need for this team. Max Crosby, 2 first-round picks, Daron Payne, I get it. I'm just throwing out one of those classic scenarios, potential scenarios, and just throwing it in the wind. But why not? Like, it's going to take you a couple of first-round picks, but wouldn't you do that? I would absolutely do that. Now, you may say, well, what about free agency? So you don't have to give up draft picks, Nick. Well, I'll tell you who you got in free agency. Well, you got Trey Hendrickson, who's out there. Trey Hendrickson just made $29 million a year. He's going to be a free agent. He has been fighting with the Bengals for what feels like 100 years over a contract. It's going to cost you. And he's 31 years old. I want somebody with less tread off that tire. I want somebody that has more years left in their prime in a Max Crosby over Trey Hendrickson. Again, it's going to cost you. But 3 years, $106 million extension versus $30 million a year. You just paid a wide receiver $30 million a year. Trey Hendrickson is 31. All right? Khalil Mack is going to be a free agent. You want to bring him in he made $18 million this past year. You want that? Now it might be cheaper. You can get Khalil Mack on a deal. But again, I'm looking at guys right now that are going to be free agents that had significant salaries this past year. Hassan Reddick, he's 31, just made $14 million. I get going. Joey Bosa, do you want Joey Bosa? 30, made $12.5 million. Again, like if you get Joey Bosa on a cheap deal, you don't have to be just one. Like the more pass rushers, the better. But in reality here, you've got an opportunity to try and poach a disgruntled player that is absolutely dominant at his position. I'd give up an extra first-round pick for that because you're going to draft somebody with that first-round pick anyway. Maybe it is an edge rusher. Hell, I'll give up next year's first-round pick. You try to recoup that some other way. And maybe it's not a first-round pick, but like these are the types of things that Adam Peters in the front office have got to think about this offseason. It's because this is not a great free agent crop. Now, they're going to have to get younger. They're going to have to draft well. But you can have all the draft picks in the world. But you got to be able to identify the talent, and that talent has to translate to the NFL. I mean, we see it all the time. We talk about busts all the time. Okay. There's no guarantees with the draft pick. What at least is guaranteed is that Max Crosby is angry and can get after the quarterback, and I want that. And hell, if you can afford Trey Hendrickson too, and it's a 3-year deal, and fine, get them both. The more, the better. The more pass rush. The most important position in sports is quarterback. After that, it's every other position that comes close to the quarterback. Whether it's the left tackle protecting his blind side, or it's pass rushers, more edge rushers, more guys that'll just get after the quarterback. You need all of them. This defense needs somebody that can disrupt the quarterback and literally change a team's game plan on a regular basis. They don't have that. And they haven't had that. And damn, they need that. So Max Crosby is, again, this is a pie-in-the-sky dream for me. You think that the Commanders would be the only team if they were to go after him? Think they'd be the only team? No, of course not. I recognize that. But, man, I'll tell you what. Max Crosby in burgundy and gold, I know you'd take it. And look, the cap space is important, and free agency is great, and they're going to spend. They're going to go after people. But you're going to have to get a little more creative. And listen, this is my thing too. Like if you're looking at the Commanders, it's not just about building a team to win. It's about building a team that can compete in this division that's going to see the Eagles twice a year, every single year. And it pains me to say it. It's gross, and I'm going to maybe vomit a little in my mouth here, but the Eagles are really, really well run, even without quality leadership. Because let's be real. Nick Sirianni's a troll. He's a child, but the team still just won a Super Bowl. And they've got Howie Roseman, the best GM in the NFL, one of the best GMs in pro sports, period, who is aggressive as hell, who drafts well, who can identify talent in college that can translate to the NFL, who is willing to go out and make trades and even buy low on some guys. And the Eagles are stacked with talent. Now, are they underachieving? Absolutely. Which is what makes this season even more frustrating, because you look at where Philadelphia is, and you go, man, they were so vulnerable this year. This Commanders team was healthy. Would they have at least had a shot at the division? It is what it is. Can't change that, unfortunately. So, but like that's the stuff that you have to think about. Oh, and keep in mind too, I'm a big believer, like I said, right, in the quarterback matchups. Like strength of schedule, throw that crap out the window in the preseason. I don't give a damn. Who cares? It means nothing to me. But quarterback matchups matter. And I know that you're going to see potentially a really good dynamic quarterback that has no self-control whatsoever in Jackson Dart. There's at least a high ceiling with him. That's twice a year with the Giants. You're going to see Dak Prescott. We can make fun of him in the playoffs all we want, but Dak Prescott in the regular season is a very, very good quarterback. And that Cowboys offense, we saw what they did earlier in the season. And if they keep George Pickens, that's another weapon for Dak Prescott. That's twice a year. Jalen Hurts, maybe a better offensive coordinator. The Eagles are at least better. The Eagles offense may have already maxed out, and this offense could be a little different next year. A.J. Brown may want out. Look, there's a lot of flux in terms of that Eagles offense. But what I do know is that no matter what the Eagles are looking at this offseason in terms of drama, new offensive coordinator, Saquon Barkley not being the same anymore, and maybe he's whatever, Howie Roseman ain't going to sit around, kick back, and just be like, we're good. Yeah, we're fine. We don't really need to go out and get anybody else. That ain't happening. So if you look at where Philadelphia is, you're thinking about a lot of stuff beyond just building a winner. Adam Peters in this front office is sitting there going, we got to compete with that every year. And it matters. Look, you may not like the Eagles, but you got to respect what they've done. They just won a Super Bowl. Do I think they're winning it this year? No. What? Do I think Nick Sirianni's a troll, a pain in the ass? Absolutely. Do I know that Philadelphia fans are sick of him? Yeah, I got friends that are Eagles fans. I know. I try to just be friends with everybody, all different thought processes in life. I'm well-rounded, but the Eagles are good, man. And then they're not going anywhere. And I think that's the toughest part about all of this is You're going to have to look in the Commanders and say, like, yeah, we got picks. We got cap space. But you got to use it right. And going out there and being aggressive for somebody like a Max Crosby, that's not a Dan Snyder era move. That's a shrewd move. That's a smart move. That's a move that addresses a need at the highest level with something that is more guaranteed than a first-round pick that may or may not be somebody that's a Pro Bowler moving forward. Again, if this team has an aggressive offseason too, that first-round pick next year that would go to the Raiders for Max Crosby, because let's say it's this year and next year, you do that, it should be a late first-round pick. Isn't that worth it? It's worth it to me. All right, a glimpse into the future of Jaden Daniels that's still way better than the alternative. I'll tell you what that is next. Nick Ash, you in for Kevin Sheehan.
All right, happy Tuesday, everybody. We start off with Monday Night Football last night. The Falcons, they shocked the Los Angeles Rams. Atlanta was up 21-0 at the half as the Rams tried to make a comeback in the second, but 3 interceptions for Matthew Stafford proved to be too much for LA to overcome. Final score 27-20 for the Wizards. They fall to the Phoenix Suns, but it was not a lost game as Trey Johnson went off in the first half, going 7 of 8 from the field with 18 points. He finished with a new career high of 24, making all 5 of his threes. Another ethical loss for the Wizards. They fall 115-101. The Caps, they got out to an early lead last night thanks to a first period goal from Tom Wilson, but quickly it was matched by Florida. A back and forth battle in the second. Caps take the early lead in the third, but a 3-goal flurry from Florida puts the Caps away. They fall 5-3. Right now, Riley Leonard is getting the call for Week 18. He'll be the Colts starter versus the Texans this week following the Colts' elimination from the playoffs. And in college football, ex-Raiders offensive coordinator Chip Kelly is joining the staff at Northwestern as their offensive coordinator. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan, Team 980. Yeah, I look at the Eagles and Howie Roseman, and no matter what, I think of this franchise and say, hey, Commanders, you got a lot to do. You got a lot of work. Again, they're going to be aggressive this offseason. We'll talk David Harrison in about 15 minutes. Covers the team for WSA 9, Locked On Commanders. Because that's where this team is now. This is about the offseason and supporting your franchise quarterback who, one, needs to get healthy for the love of God. That would be a great start, but there's a lot. You're going to have to get out there and get pass rusher. I mention all the receivers that are free agents that would be valuable to this franchise, but are you at a point where you're spending the money smartly and spreading it out to different spots, or are you going to be putting money towards, one or two big game-changing players? And there's fewer of those this free agency than, what you're looking at in terms of very good players, difference makers. There's a difference between elite and difference maker. But right now, this team needs so much that it really doesn't matter. Just go out and get it all. You got to do pretty much everything at this point. So the Ravens don't know whether Lamar Jackson's going to play. We talked to Brian DiArdo earlier. He, no matter what, brought up a good point. He's not going to be healthy against the Steelers in a game that literally decides the playoff future for both the Ravens and Steelers this weekend. And look, that's what the Ravens have had to deal with Lamar Jackson's entire career. And it's likely a glimpse into the future of what the Commanders and Jaden Daniels are going to see. Because when you have mobile quarterbacks, there is always the potential for that moment that they take the wrong hit, or they slide wrong, or they step wrong, and they get hurt. And look, I hate to say that this is going to be a continued thing throughout Jaden Daniels' career in terms of missing games because of injuries, and everybody misses sometime in the NFL for the most part. Again, I know there's some Iron Men out there, but let's be real. Most players deal with some level of injuries at some point. Even a quarterback that doesn't run around like Joe Burrow's constantly hurt. So it's not like you're just a mobile quarterback that's going to get hurt, but it does open you up to the potential of more of those possibilities. But the ceiling still makes it worth it with Jaden, right? I swear to God, I'm seeing this. I've seen it in the YouTube comments here. You can watch us on YouTube, by the way, Team 980. I've seen it on Twitter, and it's not like just now. I've seen this all season. There are literally people, and you may be trolling if you're doing this, and that's fine. It's what the internet's for at this point. That and AI videos, and dog videos. And yeah, I've seen trade Jaden Daniels. Guys, stop. Jaden ain't getting traded. They're not going to trade him. It makes no sense. For what? Again, it's the simple question. For what? We've wandered the desert aimlessly of no franchise quarterback, and it's not fun. And you're thirsty, and you're hungry, and you see a bunch of mirages out there like Kirk Cousins or RG3 or insert quarterback here, John Beck, Rex Grossman. And you think maybe that's going to be – no, it ain't going to happen. Jaden Daniels is the best thing this franchise has had at quarterback, whether or not he's going to have injury issues throughout his entire career. This is the best that they've had. Theismann? Really, we had RG3 for 1 year, and that was it. And I get it. The comparisons have been there, and the worry's been there. And you're scarred. I'm scarred. We all can admit it. We can sit back on the couch and get a little therapy together and be like, I just keep thinking about RG3. And it doesn't mean that it's the same thing. If the ceiling is Lamar Jackson, a two-time MVP, but misses games sometimes, wouldn't you take that over the alternative? Now, I get it. We all want perfect. Perfection ain't real life, and perfection ain't the NFL. It's not going to happen. You got to accept that this may be, maybe not to this degree. And again, the Commanders are also being more cautious with Jaden Daniels this year because in reality, this team ain't going to win a Super Bowl. They weren't coming into the year. They're not even close. We got a long way to go. And they realized it very early on this year after that 3-2 start that, yeah, we're kind of regressing back to what we were supposed to be. So if you're looking at what the other room looks like, and that's the quarterbackless room, there's no furniture, there's no light, curtains are closed. You open the window and it's just looking at a brick building next to you. It ain't fun. I will take this and worry about some of the injury concerns and how you can address that as much as possible with somebody like Jaden Daniels, who clearly watches film, works hard, studies, wants to get better, has maturity, has leadership, has all of the intangibles that you can't teach. Occasionally, you can grow up as a quarterback, see Baker Mayfield, but a lot of times you can't teach the things that Jaden Daniels has. Now, does he need to get bigger? Sure, but you can be big and still get hurt. I mean, eventually Cam Newton wore down too, and he's built like a defensive end. So, this is something this team has to think about. Oh, and by the way, the Jaden Daniels contract conversations, that's going to start soon. That's going to happen soon. Because, again, we are entering the offseason that is leading into the third NFL season for Jaden Daniels. I mean, life comes at you fast. And this is why backups are going to matter. This is why protection, left tackle is going to matter. Laramie Tunsil's going to get an extension this offseason. He was good this year. They went out and gave up assets for him too. Doesn't mean they don't draft a left tackle. They should be thinking about the future. They should be thinking about younger. They should be thinking about all of the options possible and what combination works best. They did most of this year with the offensive line. But Jaden Daniels is likely going to be somebody that has a very similar career if this is his ceiling. And he continues, because he's way farther along than Lamar was at this point in his career as a passer. But what I mean is in terms of the height and the success the Ravens have when Lamar's out there. And by the way, he's been hurt all year. And that Ravens team has been hurt all year, but they're still playing for a playoff spot this weekend. But Tyler Huntley's been good for the Ravens for a couple of games, beat a couple of playoff teams, he's super accurate, completing 78% of his passes. Backups are going to matter. That's kind of where this Commanders team is going to be, is understanding that you are going to have to work around a quarterback in Jaden Daniels that can do so much and figure out how you balance it and figure out how you accentuate those talents without having everybody sit on the edge of their seats dropping F-bombs every time he runs. Oh, is that just me? Oh, okay. Well, I tend to do that a lot. I'm scarred. I admit it. But all the quarterbacks are going to be, from this draft class, are going to be compared. That's always going to be the case. And right now is Drake May's time. I mean, it is. He's a heavy favorite to an MVP. It's very likely that's the case. It's very likely that Vrabel wins Coach of the Year. But what's this team look like on a first-place schedule? What does Drake May look like with more film on him next year? Because it's a big surprise. I mean, how many times have we seen young quarterbacks burst onto the scene, their rookie year, their sophomore year, whatever the case is, and then they start to level out a little bit? That's smart defensive coordinators. That's good defensive coaching. Something Washington could use. But this is something that they're last year was all about Jaden Daniels. I know he missed a little bit of time, but again, there are going to be times where maybe he misses a game. Maybe he misses a quarter. Maybe he misses a half. It's going to happen. This year is clearly something you don't want. But I've accepted the fact that there are going to be some injuries that are going to be part of the story here. That's why building around Jaden Daniels is going to be so important. That's why a strong defense is going to matter. That's why a good backup quarterback is going to matter. And it might not be Marcus Mariota anymore. Tailed off as the season went on. It might be somebody else, and that's fine. Left tackles, massively important. Guys that can get after the quarterback, really, really important. All of these things are part of building a full team, because quarterback may be the most important position in sports, but you still actually have to build a team in the NFL to win. We've seen teams win Super Bowls because of their defense. Peyton Manning got a second ring because of that Broncos defense. We know the Ravens back in 2000 because of their defense. Trent Dilfer was a game manager. Again, that was a unique situation, but these are the types of things that this team is going to have to figure out. And it's going to mean an aggressive offseason, but also a calculated aggression. I mean, it really has to be that way. And I get that everybody just wants to see them spend, and that's great, but don't overpay. You might have to overpay for somebody that you desperately want, that is going to be a difference maker. But again, I think the biggest difference maker on the market for this team is Max Crosby. And he's not actually on the market, but he could be on the market. I would go after him first and foremost, better than any edge rusher that you could possibly imagine that's on the free agent market right now. And that doesn't mean you can't also then go and add more. Again, they have the money to spend. It's just about what's the smart move and what's the right move. And that's where this team sits right now. Because this game against the Eagles doesn't matter on Sunday from a standings perspective. It matters for the Eagles. And yeah, would it be nice to play spoiler? Now, don't get me wrong. There's a little something extra riding on this after Nick Sirianni went for that 2-point conversion. And Dan Quinn said, we'll see him in 2 weeks. So there's that. If I have to make a prediction, I'll say there's at least one fight in this game, especially for some guys that are just like, screw it. Last game of the year, 1-2-3 Cancun. Take a couple swings. But please, nobody pull a Deron Payne and try to punch a guy with a helmet on. That is one of the biggest pet peeves that I have, is this mindset. Like, I get you're mad and it's the heat of the moment, but swinging on a guy with a helmet that's supposed to prevent concussions when you're banging other helmets, which is basically a mini car crash over and over and over again. What do you think wins the battle between fist and helmet? It ends up being fist. Like, we've all got that friend, right, that's maybe taking a swing at a wall or a window. I had a friend in college. There were beers involved. And he punched a window and severed ligaments in his hand. The window won that battle. So any fights in this Eagles game, please don't swing at a guy with a helmet. Your fist is going to lose that battle. You know, if you don't really care and you're just like, I can heal in the offseason, all right, but it just seems really unproductive to me. But I think that there is a chance that this Eagles game has a slight amount of fisticuffs, if you will. But yeah, look, it's still, the NFL's done a great job of backloading these division games to end the regular season. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. It just would be better if this game actually meant something for the playoffs. But that's what this offseason means. And playing spoilers like fun and all, but do you really care? Like, realistically, the Commanders beat the Eagles on Sunday and what? Ruin their chances at a 2 seed. Who cares, right? Like, do you really care? Does it really matter that much? So the whole notion, the idea of, let's play spoiler this weekend, okay, and the Eagles will laugh their way into the playoffs. You're competing with that team long term. It's not short term. But look, guys are out there still caring, which tells me that culture is something that is building there. But you can't just be about the culture. A win against the Eagles on Sunday does at least carry a better taste in your mouth into the offseason, if that makes sense. But it takes a lot more than that, because you can lose all that momentum with a weak offseason, losing out on free agents that you need, a poor draft, whatever the case is. And look, this whole fan base is watching. Everybody's paying attention, right? You want to see them be aggressive. I want to see them be aggressive too. I want to see smart aggression, though. Like, that's the most important thing for them. All right, do we see another big game from Bill on Sunday? David Harrison, WUSA 9, going to join us next. Nick Ashing, in for Kevin Sheehan. Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan, Team 980. Commanders and Eagles wrapping up the season Sunday, 425. A game that matters for Philadelphia and does not matter at all for the Commanders, other than individual players, other than guys like Debo trying to get a new deal. A lot of that's still up in the air, without question. David Harrison jumps on with me now. WSA 9, Locked On Commanders, Commander Squad. I hear Commander Squad is a great podcast that a couple of people do together. You should check it out if you haven't checked that out yet. David, you and I talk a lot, obviously, about this team, and you are as immersed as anybody. You were in that locker room after games. You were traveling with this team. There is nobody that's closer to this organization than you. We've obviously talked in different settings, but not on this show, not on this station. And when it comes to this season as a whole, how would you just look back on everything that's happened with one game left in the regular season? Is it complete disbelief? Is it a little bit of a shoulder shrug? Like, has the emotion or the I guess, wrapping your head around how everything essentially unraveled for this team, like, truly have you gotten through that yet?
Yeah, I mean, pretty early on in the season, actually. Like, it's pretty stunning. I'll be honest. Like, it's kind of stunning the way that things have really unfolded this season. But pretty early on in the season, I really kind of just got the vibe. And I think I've said this on the Squad Show before, like, you know, the whole cliche of when people show you who they are, believe them. And the 2025 NFL season, for whatever, showed the Commanders pretty early that they weren't going to be buddies. And, you know, the Washington Commanders, God bless them, just kept fighting, kept plugging, kept trying to make this relationship work and try to show they can be good together. But for whatever reason, man, the Washington Commanders in the 2025 NFL season are going to go down as enemies for all time. And we'll see. 2026 is right around the corner. You know, they have the New Year's baby. We can use that. There's going to be a rebirth. There's going to be a new effort. And who knows, maybe 2026 and the Commanders will be best friends and this will all just be a footnote in history. But it's been pretty shocking. And then, you know, trying to strike the balance between how much of it is coaching, how much of it is scheme, how much of it is talent, and how much of it is injuries, I think has been really interesting because I think everybody's going to kind of have their own takes on it. And really none of them are necessarily right because there's really no way to just, without any shadow of a doubt, quantify how much each thing really had a role in 4 or maybe 5 wins, depending on what happens on Sunday.
That was a great collection of analogies right there. That might have been your best yet. It was poetic the way that you put that together. All right, let's look at this game against the Eagles on Sunday. Who, in your eyes, is playing for the most as an individual player from this team?
Yeah, I think I would like to say the running backs, right? But, like, at the same time, they've kind of, I mean, haven't they already kind of proven what they're capable of doing? Like Chris Rodriguez, you know, really, I mean, even dating back, you know, before Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn and all these guys, like even back with Ron Rivera, you know, he's always been a guy that when he gets the opportunity to perform in a game, he's going to do it. The question coming in to a season like this one really was that a lot of his opportunities were coming in garbage time and things like that. And those are always a little bit of a slanted type of performance. So seeing him get the opportunity to start games off and be a bigger part of the game plan, you know, not throughout the season necessarily, but at least in key moments, is really kind of showing you what he's capable of. Ja'Cory Crossy-Merritt, 7th-round rookie. You know, there have been better rookie seasons from 7th-round picks, surely, but he's definitely had one of the best. And I think that the two of them combined have kind of shown that they have a capability of carrying a running game. You know, maybe not the best in the league, but they're actually kind of on par. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks duo has had more opportunity, more reps. But when you look at a, you know, per carry efficiency and all that stuff, Bill and C-Rod actually are right on par with that group. And there's not a whole lot of people looking at the Seattle Seahawks backfield saying they need to, you know, overhaul that group. So I think this duo has kind of done their job, but at the same time, you know, seeing them finish strong, if they both are able to play against the Eagles would be nice. I think there's an interesting dynamic with Johnny Newton and Daron Payne. We kind of talked about this week. I've talked about it on Locked On Commanders, but like the price tag that Daron Payne is carrying into 2026, the amount of money they can save Johnny Newton and some of his performances this season, you know, granted playing fewer snaps than he did as a rookie, but he's got, you know, tackles for losses are going up, quarterback hits are going up, sacks are going up, and so there's some promise there. How much do the Commanders believe in it, and is there enough belief in there to allow them to move on from Daron Payne, who, you know, the coaching staff has done a really good job of making sure that they share with us that he's a leader in that room, whether we see it, you know, outwardly during game days and and all that stuff. But, the amount of production versus the money is always going to talk louder, I think, than a lot of those things. So Adam Peters has an interesting decision to make there as well. And when you look at the defense, the interior has really been kind of the best part of the defense, most consistently this season. So if they make a big move there by letting Deron Payne go, by trading him or whatever, then that's a big roll of the dice as well while they try to fix the rest of the defense.
All right, hear me out, David. I'm not putting on my tinfoil hat because this isn't a conspiracy theory, but it is a wild idea. This is how my brain works. 2 first-round picks and Deron Payne for Max Crosby. Who says no?
I mean, honestly, so the Raiders, it's interesting. The Raiders are actually a team that, I did a little bit of a precursor investigation on like what teams might be looking for an interior D lineman. The Raiders are one of them. The Bears are another. The Texans are another that just kind of came up with a cursory, kind of like a pre-search, if you want to put it that way. I don't think the Max Crosby thing is honestly as dramatic as maybe we in the media and the public are making it out to be. I don't see Max as being a guy who's going to kind of phone it in on a team or something like that. But you also never know. Like this is a man who is obviously the biggest competitor in the world. And, if he feels like he's in an organization that doesn't want to compete to the level he wants to, that could be enough. If he wants out of Vegas, even though he is a little bit older and he's getting up there, I mean, I would love him. You know what I mean? And yeah, if that's a trade that AT would be willing to make, I mean, they need a premier edge rusher to go out there and do it. You move Johnny Newton up in the depth chart. Javon Kinlaw's coming back. Maybe you bring back Eddie Goldman. DJ Reader is going to be a free agent out there for the Detroit Lions. Go get some size back on the D line to rotate with Johnny. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I would try to crucify AP for making that move at all.
Oh man, Max Crosby in burgundy and gold, man. It just gives me chills just thinking about it. Talking to David Harrison, Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan on Team 980. This game this weekend against the Eagles, obviously from a standings perspective, means nothing for the Commanders. From a draft pick perspective, it could. For the Eagles, it means something in terms of seeding, but it also means something for this Commanders team that had a 2-point conversion gone for against them, and Nick Sirianni at the end, and Dan Quinn saying we'll see them in 2 weeks. I think this has kind of been a little bit forgotten because there's so many other things going on, but I'm not going to predict. Okay, you know what? Screw it. I'll do it. I think there's at least one fight in this game because of that. Last game of the year. Everybody's ready for vacation. 1, 2, 3 Cancun. I just don't want to see anybody pull a Deron Payne, David, where they're swinging at a helmet because we know the helmet always wins that fight over a fist. Yeah. But I do think that from a rivalry perspective, from a storyline perspective, from a emotional perspective for the Commanders, that is still on the minds of this team. Do you think that will factor in at all in this game?
I think it certainly could, but I think, and the thing about Nick Sirianni is like his reputation doesn't need any help, right? His reputation is what it is. I know Saquon Barkley, was asked recently in a locker room interview what his thoughts on Nick Sirianni was, when he was in New York, and he's like, oh, I hated that MFer and all that stuff. But now that I've gotten to know him and, all the things that people say now that they're friends, right? So I think that players around the league know who Nick Sirianni is. They don't need any help necessarily to like or dislike him as a coach. But I think if the Washington Commanders and they do something similar, certainly you can see something like that. I think for the Philadelphia Eagles, though, and I don't know if Sirianni is the type of forward thinker or whatever you want to call it to really even go into this, but like after what happened the last time these two teams matched up, obviously it wasn't that long ago, the officials are going to be more aware of these kinds of things, the pushing, the shoving, and the chippiness. And if you're the Eagles, you got to worry about playoff games. You know what I mean? So you got to worry about, is Jalen Carter going to get mixed up in something like this and then suspended for the wild card round, or somebody else on my team? And I think if you're the Eagles, and if you have a mature coach who understands the big picture versus the small pettiness, you have to make them understand, listen, like, don't let these Commanders get under your skin. If they start picking, if they start, talking trash, chirping, just let them go. We've got bigger fish to fry. And look, if I'm on that side, honestly, like a little bit of a pettiness too, like they're all worried about their vacations. We're worried about trophies. And that's the message I would give to my Eagles players if I was Nick Sirianni. The problem is Nick Sirianni is known as that guy, right? So Nick Sirianni may very well go out there and egg his own guys on. And, look, we'll see what happens. But if it gets really nasty and the Eagles end up with a guy, suspended for the wild card round, it could be a major influence depending on who that guy is.
I guess that's a way of playing spoiler. Like, our season's done, but we can ruin your season in a couple of different ways. So there's motivation there for the Commanders. At least one thing you could do. There's motivation for Deebo Samuel too. I am happy with the season he had given the circumstances. I mean, obviously people would want more yards. There's all kinds of things that you could nitpick, but I think at times being a number one receiver and how he's used and not having the franchise quarterback out there, all of these things kind of factored into it. Do you see Deebo Samuel, and I know money is the major factor in this, but do you see Deebo Samuel playing his last game for the Commanders against the Eagles, or is there a chance that he is back next year?
I think there's a chance. There's certainly a financial motivation for Adam Peters. Deebo, I think, is going to demand a good amount of money, but I don't think he's going to demand, top dollar or anything. Like, you're not going to end up in like a Terry McLaurin situation necessarily. But Deebo already is on the books for a little over $12 million against the cap next year if he's not on this team in void year money. So if you're AP, you're looking at, I'm already paying $12 million for you. What's the asking price and what's the difference, and how can I construct this contract to where, maybe it's a $12 million hit straight up in 26, and then we spread the rest out over the rest of the contract, whatever that is, new void year money and all that stuff. I think there certainly should be a desire, if Adam Peters and Dan Quinn always talk about going out there and getting Commanders, and what that really means, not from just a player perspective. I think Deebo has been a great addition to the locker room. I think you've certainly seen the potential as a weapon. And I think no matter what the offensive scheme looks like in 2026, any offensive scheme can use a guy like Deebo Samuel and the competitiveness and the determination. So given his reputation coming into it, I didn't buy it personally anyway, but given his reputation coming out of San Francisco, like in a season like this one, you would think that he'd be the first to give a, salacious soundbite in the locker room after a game or something like that. And he's done the complete opposite. He's been a steady professional and a positive role in this locker room. So yeah, I think there's definitely a chance he comes back. It's just about, like you said, it's about the money and making it work.
So I had another name suggested for this team in free agency, and I was a hard no on this previous guest that was on earlier. I won't call him out. You can just look up what he said. Although he did say he doesn't think they're going to do it, so I'll give him credit for that. George Pickens is going to be a free agent. David, I'm a hell no with that. The talent is there, but man, the headache outweighs the talent still. Any chance that this team, with the combination of like stealing him from Dallas and needing a wide receiver and the talent being there, any chance that he's somebody that this team could target this offseason?
I mean, listen, I don't know George, you know what I mean? But I know his reputation and just the reputation. And I know that they try to make it a little bit lighter in Dallas, but it kind of seems like the same old thing. I don't think so. I think if you're for one, he's going to demand, not like Jamar Chase money, but he's going to demand pretty high up there type of money. And after paying Terry McLaurin the money you paid him, if you're trying to bring Deebo back, I don't think you're going to go after Pickens. You have enough money to certainly do it. I don't think getting him from the Cowboys is necessarily going to be a motivation for this crew. I don't think they really operate that way. And we'll have to see what happens to the Brandon Ayuk situation. Like, don't forget, Brandon and Jaden are best buds and they want to play together. And Brandon wasn't shy about saying that he wants to play with his guy. And with all this stuff going on, there's definitely the possibility that Brandon is the problem in San Francisco. There's a possibility that San Francisco is the problem with Brandon, but the truth usually, as we know, lies in the middle. And nobody knows Brandon Ayuk better than Jaden Daniels. Nobody knows him from a outside San Francisco general manager standpoint than Adam Peters. So if there's an outside receiver name that I've got my eye on, it's not too genius of a stroke to take, but I think it's Brandon Ayuk. And like I said, if you can bring Deebo back along with them, the combination of Terry, Ayuk, and Deebo, it sounds pretty attractive if you can make all the numbers work.
Talking to David Harrison, Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan. There's a lot of needs for this team. I think everybody knows that. They got a lot of cap space. What's the one position that you would put at the top of the depth chart, whether it's specific player in free agency or just position as a whole, that you would put at the very, very top in terms of needs to address this offseason?
It's got to be the pass rush, and it's got to be the edge. You got to go get an edge rusher, whether it's Max Crosby, you know what I mean, in a trade for Daron Payne, or if it's a guy at the top of the draft. There's at least 4 guys in the edge group that are being looked at as top 10 draft picks right now, and we'll see what that looks like in April. But you got to go get an edge rusher. You got to be able to impact the quarterback. I think last year, the secondary that the Commanders had this year and the secondary they had last year were fairly similar. Obviously, Trey Amos was a new addition. Mikey Sainer still moving back inside was different from the majority of what we saw last year anyway. So there were some differences. Will Harris was an addition until he got hurt as well. But this defense last year, while it wasn't great it did a really good job of preventing explosive passes. And I think this year you realize with the lack of pass rush, especially after Dorrance Armstrong went out, that the reason they didn't give up the explosive passes that they did this year is because the pass rush was getting home more often, was getting more pressure on the quarterback, and was impacting opposing offensive opportunities to take the deep shots and take them accurately. And without that pass rush presence, with teams figuring out how the Commanders use Frankie Louvu and being able to kind of isolate him and eliminate him from the process, not having another answer opposite of Dorrance Armstrong, even when he was healthy, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think it just showcased, the old cliches. It's hard to be a bad team when you're good in the trenches. And the Washington Commanders, at least from a pass rushing standpoint, just weren't that good in the trenches this year for whatever reason. So they've got to make sure that they go out there and commit resources. I think a combination of free agents and draft picks, right? Like, go get you a first round edge. If there's one sitting there that's worth it, and there most likely will be, go get a guy like Malcolm Kuntz, who's going to be a free agent from the Las Vegas Raiders. Go trade for Max Crosby. Honestly, like, if you trade for Max Crosby, come back, use a third round draft pick on another edge. Like, you can never have too many pass rushers in this league, I don't think. And if you can start developing a guy, Dorrance Armstrong is going to be a free agent in 2027. And depending on his health and how he comes back and all those kinds of things, you might need a guy kind of waiting in the wings. So I like what Jacob Martin has done this year, but Jacob, I think, is much more of a stand-up outside linebacker rusher type than a down lineman. And that's where they really need to get better, is that down lineman. At the same time, though, you also got to find a way to set the edge. Right, and that's what Dietrich Wise was supposed to do. And until he got hurt, he was definitely doing a better job of it this year than we saw, last year. I know it was a small sample size from Dietrich before he got hurt in week 2, but it was definitely working. So is there a prospect that can help you set the edge better and also, rush the passer? Because like Max Crosby, as much as everybody loves him, he's not like the biggest edge setter in the world. Devin White found that out the hard way, if you know what I'm talking about. Max yelling at him to set the edge, because that's not what Max does. He gets after the quarterback, makes plays in the backfield. So, there's a lot to it there. I think it's going to take multiple pieces, but I think if you prioritize any one thing this offseason, that's where it's got to be.
Can never have enough pass rushers. I 100% agree. David Harrison, Locked On Commanders, Commanders Squad, WSA 9, a million things, as plugged into the team as anybody is in DC. Thanks for coming on, man. Good talking to you, buddy. And you're stuck with me again tomorrow. We do another podcast, so have fun.
Yeah, I got you.
See you, buddy. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, you can't look in the NFL today. Disrupting an offense that is pass heavy is as important, maybe one notch below, is actually having that quarterback. And despite what we've seen with the injuries, Washington still has their quarterback as long as he gets healthy, and that's the most important thing. All right, Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan on the Team 980. Nick Ash, you in for Kevin Sheehan. In 20 minutes, we're going to hear one of the greatest rants ever from Coach Cal. I listened to a little bit of the audio. It's unbelievable. That's all I'll tell you. That's all I'll say. Thanks, David Harrison, who joined us. If you missed any of that, of course, it'll be on all the various ways that you get podcasts and things like that. Look, we know that the Commanders are in this spot now where this is a massive offseason for them. Like, forget what's happening against the Eagles. I mean, yeah, play spoiler or get somebody suspended because they get in a fight or whatever. Like, that's all fun to play, but like reality, that's not going to build a winning franchise. Like, this offseason is what matters. This offseason is massively important for what happens on the field, but also perspective of the franchise. Like, people have to look at this team from a fan base to within the organization and believe that they're going in the right direction. And it felt easy after year one, but it's massive steps back this year. Now you have a built-in, and I hate to use the word excuse because people scoff at that word, but it is a built-in excuse in the sense that they were massively destroyed by injuries, and there are limits, and you can point to the 49ers and say, well, look at them, and they've been building this team for years. It's not a good comparison. It's not the same thing at all. You're comparing one team's chapter 10 to like their chapter 2 in Washington. Like, it's not the same thing. But what I will say is that, you have to be able to lean in on the ability to make quick changes for this team. What I mean by that is high draft picks and a significant amount of cap space. But it does have to be done smartly. And, don't overthink this and comparison is the death of joy. That's one of those like Instagram quotes that you see. But like, it is true in the sense that this team has to stay the course and do it the right way. You can't look at what Drake May did over the weekend and the 5 touchdown passes and the likelihood that he's probably going to win MVP this year. And Matt Stafford threw 3 picks last night. So at that point, it's like, well, I think we kind of know where this is going to go. You can't look at that. You can't look at Caleb Williams looking better in Ben Johnson's offense year one in Chicago. Because also, let's wait till the playoffs before we start talking about the improvement of these quarterbacks, because there's a big difference between regular season NFL and playoff football. It is very different. Drake May could look very different in the playoffs. Caleb Williams could look very different in the playoffs. But there's going to be comparisons. Bo Nix is likely going to be a quarterback for the number 1 seed in the AFC with the Broncos. But would you take Bo Nix over Jaden Daniels? Yeah, I still wouldn't right now. But it's reasonable to understand that there is going to be a comparison with all of the quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels' draft class. I get it. I understand that that's going to be the case. But let's also remember that Jaden Daniels got his team to an NFC Championship game as a rookie and was in the MVP conversation last year. No, he didn't win it, but he was in the conversation as a rookie. There's a lot of football left to be played by all of these quarterbacks. And it's easy for us to be trapped in the moment. It's easy for us to look at the now and say, well, that's it. That's everything. And I see a lot of that. Again, I know the internet is a cesspool at times, but the people talking about trading Jaden Daniels for what? For more draft picks? Okay, we know how that works out. How many quarterbacks has this team drafted? This is the best option and the best potential and the highest ceiling that they have had at quarterback in decades. I mean, listen, I'm happy that Kirk Cousins has had a little bit of a resurgence and some decent success stepping in as the starter in Atlanta after the way things went for him last year. I root for Kirk Cousins. That guy's broken a bunch of franchise records. If you could take Kirk Cousins in his prime or Jaden Daniels last year, who are you taking? I know who you're taking. It's Jaden Daniels. And I like Kirk. He had a great career, Kirk. But, like, at the same time, there's a certain point where you just got to look around and go, like, this is a small sample size. Now, you've got to protect Jaden Daniels. You've got to go out and build this defense because if he does miss time, which he inevitably will, it's going to happen. Happens to mobile quarterbacks. It's happening to Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens have success when he's healthy, and they've got a backup that actually in Tyler Huntley's been pretty damn good for them. Just beat a couple of playoff teams as a starter. And Lamar hasn't been healthy all year, and neither has that entire Ravens team. And yes, I get it. They've had more success because they've been hurt, blah, blah, blah. Again, that is a more well-built and more betterly constructed. Is that a word? Betterly? Betterly. We're going to go with that. Betterly constructed team in Baltimore than what Washington's got right now. So stop comparing like the 49ers and their injuries or the Ravens and their injuries to the Commanders. I mean, like, see, Adam Peters doesn't know what he's doing. Stop. This is the beginning of a complete rebuild. You have to get, I know it sucks. I know it's awful. I know we've suffered enough dealing with this team But dude, we have to give this time. The clock has started over with a whole new organization. It's a fresh start. I know we've suffered through so many years, but it's not like we've suffered through 7 or 8 years of dysfunction under Adam Peters and Josh Harris, okay? This is new, but that doesn't mean that you still can't move forward, and you still don't have to move forward aggressively starting this offseason, right? Because, like, now doesn't guarantee anything in the future. And I've said it multiple times on the show, and I still can't believe it. We are entering the offseason that will be leading into year 3 of Jaden Daniels' career in the NFL already. Year 3. Think about that. I mean, dude, it goes by fast. Around a bunch of family over Christmas and around my nephew who just turned 8. I'm like, man, kids grow up quick, right? Time flies. Well, yeah, it does. It flies for quarterbacks and it flies for 8-year-olds. It's true. There's going to be more film on Drake May. There's going to be more film on Caleb Williams in this new offense. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't evolve. Doesn't mean that they don't still get better. But, like, we haven't even talked about Michael Penix Jr. He's been hurt a bunch too. Now, I wouldn't have taken Michael Penix Jr. over Jaden Daniels, but what I'm saying is he could have a better year next year when he's healthy. It's like there's so much up in the air. The one thing I do know is this draft class that Jaden Daniels was a part of last year has the potential to be the greatest quarterback draft class of all time. It has the potential. Now, does it mean that they'll all reach those heights of expectation? No. The odds are not in favor of that happening. But if these quarterbacks stay healthy, all of them, Bo Nix, Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., like all of these guys, J.J. McCarthy, who is kind of an afterthought because he's been hurt his entire career, which, by the way, you want to talk about injury problems. You think it's been bad for Jaden this year. Look at the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy. First 2 years of his career, a nothing burger. Couple of moments. Guys always hurt, like always hurt. And he's not a mobile quarterback like Jaden is. So it's not like a running quarterback is automatically going to get hurt. It could happen to anybody. Some of it's just your body taking care of it. I mean, Matt Stafford does all this crazy red light therapy. And I mean, I'm a nerd for that. I'm not going to get into that stuff. I love that stuff. But, you know, like look it up. It's like a zero gravity red light therapy thing that he uses. And there's other stuff too, but like, it's crazy. But if Jaden Daniels is able to take care of his body and, you know, I know we talk about him needing to get bigger, and that's part of it, but, like, that's not everything. Bigger triceps weren't going to help him dislocating his elbow. Like, that's just bad luck. It's just football. It was also him running for his life because he had nobody open downfield the entire game against Seattle. It was the first time I ever saw Jaden Daniels get angry, too, right? You're looking around, you're like, oh, he's not smiling after a bad play. He's pissed. He's slamming the ball on the ground. Like, that's not the Jaden Daniels we know. I still maintain that part of that injury, the latest of the many injuries that he had this year, part of that with Jaden was just out of frustration, not making the right decisions, right? They say, like, don't drive when you're angry. I might tell Jaden, don't run when you're mad. Don't know if that'll work as a game plan, but I'll talk to the coaching staff and see if I could do that. Like, it's okay to be mad at the results, but still patient with this team. And that's where I am. You know, it was like I was like the only person in DC, I felt like, that wasn't panicking over the Terry McLaurin negotiation. I was like, this is going to work out. And then they paid him. Like, that's how that stuff goes. Now, injuries and career regression or progression are different things. I understand that. But as a team, as a whole, if you're looking at the Commanders, as long as you don't get decimated by injuries the way that they did this year, and they're going to add more depth, and they're going to add more talent, and they're going to go out and spend money, and they're going to go out and hopefully draft at least a couple of difference makers, and hopefully get better production from rookies this year or guys that are in their second year that really take a big leap in the offseason where they're not draft picks, but it's still young talent that's contributing more, that adds to sort of that young core you want to build around or build with. All of those things, I mean, they matter. They are part of the factor and part of all of this. But look, I'll admit it, I certainly was spoiled last year. You were spoiled. Football gods came for that payment. They had the receipts, and they said, it's time for you to pay. And it happens. It happens all the time. Difference is a 49ers team or a Ravens team dealing with injuries when they've been rebuilding, or just Ravens weren't ever rebuilding, it feels like, but they were building for years. You add more of that depth. It takes a lot of time for that. Andrew, I see Andrew in the YouTube comments. No, Andrew, this is not RG3 all over again. Come on. It's not RG3. Not yet. Also, it's not the same thing as RG3 because RG3 would have pushed himself out on the field late in the season, and Jaden Daniels is sitting the rest of the way. So they're much more cautious, which tells me, too, that this organization is also going to say, yeah, we know how things went before, and we ain't going to do it. It's like if somebody that's running for office, especially president, which I know is super polarizing now. We're not going to get into politics, but what I will say is watch campaigns for somebody that's running against somebody that's currently in office. Most of it is just, I'll do the opposite of this guy. Everything they did wrong, here's a list, I'll do the opposite. If you're anybody involved in any decision-making in the Commanders front office, all you got to do is say, we have a blueprint for what not to do. Let's do that. You ever worked for a bad boss? Maybe gotten into a leadership position on your own? You just look at what that bad boss did and say, I'll just do the opposite. And I'm already off to a head start. That's it. That's what they have to do. It is a massive offseason because there's a certain point where, yeah, you can't just say, we're building culture. Okay, enough. Get it, you're building culture. There needs to be more than that. But it does matter because, again, the standards were low. Oh, I mean, think about what we came from with this team. When Josh Harris and Magic Johnson and that whole ownership group took over, the first thing was just don't step on your you-know-what. Let's just start with that. Let's just start with the basics. Let's just not be a laughingstock. Let's just, I don't know, not be a joke. Let's just not be the worst franchise in the NFL. Let's have adults in the room. Let's have professionals running this thing. Culture. Like, culture does matter. And you have to build that, but winning also then builds more of that culture. And that's where this team now has to go. But you do have a level of a foundation that is there that at least has that 12-win season under your belt to show, hey, we can do it, right? It's proof of concept where you can at least say, as an organization, we do know what we're doing. Now, that's not even meant to be presented to you, right? Like, see, we know what we're doing. Everything's fine. It's more of meant to be for themselves because you got a first-time general manager in Adam Peters. Now, he was the number one candidate, front office candidate, general manager candidate in the NFL that offseason, and he came to Washington. And there are players around the NFL that now view this organization as a destination in free agency. Not a, I'm going to go and get one extra big contract. Not a, I'm going to prolong my career and get some extra checks. And not a, it's last resort, whatever. It's a slump buster. It's a, fine. Lights came on. I'll still say, yes, take you home. No, this is actually like a legit franchise that players want to play for, and that matters. And that goes back to culture. But culture becomes just a buzzword if you don't actually build on the field. And that's what makes this whole thing so massively important for them. And they were building a lot of this on the fly, and there's no longer this idea of, well, do we try to win now or do we try to build for the future? Like, you can kind of tinker with it a little bit, but eventually the GPS is going to tell you one way or the other. Can't drive on both roads at the same time. Eventually you got to say, we are rebuilding or we are trying to win now. Again, there are gray areas to both of that, but in reality, this team now knows their identity. They're not a win now team. They are a rebuilding team, and that's okay because that's what they're supposed to be. But you then have to rebuild. The momentum has to show on the field. The aggression has to show in the offseason. This is the crossroads that this team is at because, again, Jaden Daniels is entering his third year. You know what's going to start being whispered? Jaden Daniels contract. Get ready. You think it was loud with Dak Prescott? If Jaden has another year like this and he's hurt, even if he misses 3 games, I mean, it's going to be a thing. So get ready. Terry McLaurin contract was a big deal. God. This is going to start. Like, this offseason, it will already be a conversation. I'm telling you now, remember this moment. Jaden Daniels and big contract in some form will be used in sentences around the NFL. That's how this thing gets done. But I wouldn't do it the minute he's extension eligible unless you see a really good season next year. But that's a whole other conversation. Plenty of time this offseason for that. Wait till you hear what Coach Cal just said. This is gold, Jerry, gold. Hey, Cashew in for Kevin Sheehan.
All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We start off with a recap of Monday Night Football last night. The Falcons, they shocked the Los Angeles Rams. Atlanta up 21-0 at the half as the Rams tried to mount a comeback. The 3 interceptions from Matthew Stafford proved to be too much for Los Angeles to overcome. They fall 27-24. The Wizards, they fall to the Phoenix Suns But it was not a lost game as Trey Johnson went off in the first half, shooting 7 of 8 from the field with 18 points. He finished with a new career high of 24, making all 5 of his threes. Another ethical loss for the Wizards as they fall to the Suns 115-101. The Caps, they got out to an early lead last night thanks to a first period goal from Tom Wilson, but quickly it was matched by Florida. Back and forth battle in the second period. Caps take the lead early in the third, but 3 goals of a 3-goal flurry from Florida puts the Caps away. They fall 5-3 right now. A bullet dodged by the Denver Nuggets as Nikola Jokic went down last night. Many feared the worst, but fortunately, he will only be sidelined for about 4 weeks after hyperextending his left knee. All of his ligaments are intact. An NFL update, Riley Leonard getting the call for Week 18. He will be the Colts starter versus the Texans following Colts elimination from the playoffs, and college football ex-Raiders OC Chip Kelly is joining the staff at Northwestern as their offensive coordinator. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Nick Ashew in for Kevin Sheehan. This was bound to happen at some point. We haven't had a good rant in a while from a coach. Coach Cal just gave us that. I'm just going to give him a standing ovation now right off the bat. Look, college sports is a disaster right now. It's the Wild West. NIL deals and transfer portals, and coaches are pissed off about the way everything's gone. And listen, things change no matter what. You've got to learn to evolve with technology, with new rules, with new laws, whatever. You think our industry hasn't changed a ton over the last few years? I can tell you it's changed a lot over the last few years, but you either evolve or you die. Like that expression has existed for so long because it exists. But there are limits to it. And I think any sane, reasonable person will look at college basketball and college football, and it's mainly college football first because that's the more, that's where most of the money is. That's the biggest money. That's the, most eyeballs on it. But it doesn't mean there aren't obviously major college basketball programs that are significant, have a bright spotlight on them. The big thing in college basketball right now that's really been the polarizing topic has been Baylor signing a guy, essentially, that was drafted in the NBA but never actually played. James Najee, I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. I remember when he got drafted, but he was one of those guys. So he's a 21-year-old center. The Pistons took him 31st overall. He was traded a bunch of times, played overseas for FC Barcelona, hasn't been in the NBA. So he was eligible to play in college. Because here's the thing. The rules are different for international players versus American players when it comes to getting drafted in the NBA yet still being college eligible. Well, eventually a coach was going to go off, and we've had some snippets of this. We've had some coaches hinting at it. Well, the great Coach Cal, John Calipari, after the win that Arkansas had over JMU, had this to say.
Well, look, I don't blame coaches. I've got friends that are playing with 27-year-olds and they feel bad. I said, don't feel bad. We don't have any rules. Why should you feel bad? But let me give you this. Real simple. The rules be's the rules. So if you put your name in the draft, I don't care if you're from Russia and you stay in the draft, you can't play college basketball. Well, that's only for American kids. What? If your name is in that draft and you got drafted, you can't play because that's our rule. Yeah, but that's only for American kids. Okay. Now, here's the next lawsuit. Well, we don't have a say over European players. You do if they're playing in college basketball. So that means you don't have a say over high school kids. So whatever a high school kid does before he comes here, don't you do one thing because there's a suit. Because what you're saying is, if he's in Europe, we don't have the same rules. What? If he puts his name in the draft, can't go to college. He left his name in. Well, that's different because he's European. Okay, you're not doing anything with a high school player then. We don't have any jurisdiction over a high school player, do we? We don't. So when they come, you just got to say, all right, now they're here. The other thing, the eligibility, again, real simple. You got 5 years to play 4. If you stay at the same school 4 years, we'll give you a 5th year. If your coach leaves or is fired, you can transfer without penalty. You can do it once, and if the coach is fired or leaves, you could end up doing it twice. But after that, you got to sit out. You transfer, but you got to sit out. Does anybody care what this is doing for 17 and 18-year-old American kids? Do you know what this opportunity has done for them and their families? There aren't going to be any high school kids. Who other than dumb people like me are going to recruit high school kids? I get so much satisfaction out of coaching young kids and seeing them grow and make it and their family life changes that I'm going to keep doing it. But why would anybody else, if you can get NBA players, G League players, guys that are 28 years old, guys from Europe, do we really know their transcript? Do we have somebody over there? Do we really know their birth certificate? Or don't we? And then, just there's no – look, Tommy Izzo, Mark Few, there are a bunch of us that are just, we got no rules. Why did they let that kid play? Tell us all. Here's what the reason. Then we'll all go get pros. We'll go find them.
I love Coach Cal. Listen, he mentioned Tom Izzo and Mark Few, and these coaches are kind of like dabbled in the conversation. Nobody just came out and said it the way Coach Cal did. Look, I love the guy. I think he is an unbelievable salesman. You want to talk about an X's and O's coach, that's a different conversation. But as somebody that markets his programs, as someone that recruits, as someone that sells what he's trying to sell, there is nobody better than Coach Cal. Plain and simple, man. And look, for years at Kentucky, it's not like he hasn't gone with, bending every rule that he possibly can or taking advantage of whatever system is there. He is the epitome of, at least when he was Kentucky, the one and done guy. That's what he did. It was a new team essentially every year at Kentucky. And he got sick of it and he left because, Kentucky fans, boosters wanted more. And I get that in some ways because he'd come out and talk about how it was more important to get guys to the NBA than win a national championship. And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, what are you saying this for? Like, are you crazy? That's an inside thought. Keep it inside. But he's willing to say it. If he stops coaching, we need to give him a TV show, podcast, anything. I need daily Coach Cal, just opinions. It doesn't even have to be college basketball, too. Just give me anything. But listen, this is, college sports in general they're in a real important crossroads right now. You've got to have some limit to this. You got to have some limit to what kids are getting paid. You got to have some limits to like when and where. And I know they're trying to tweak rules in terms of transfer portal and all. Like, it's all over the place right now. And the NCAA can't get out of its own way. They're a mess. They've been a mess for a long time. But you've got to come up with a better system than what you've got. In the meantime, we'll at least have Coach Cal saying the things that he's saying. So I think we all could be happy about that. The rules be the rules, Max, is that is a quote, and that is a clip that I hope continues to live on for quite some time. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm saving that one for future use, that's for sure, because that one's going to be a drop that lives in the annals of our files forever.
I love it. And I hope that Chris Russell, when he's on, also says it in his way. The rules be the rules! And just hearing that will make my life so much better. It'll make me so happy. If I just hear Rooster start talking about the rules be the rules. In
Agreed.
fact, what a really good bit would be, and I don't know if he's in there now or where he is because I am doing this from the home studio, if somebody could give him a transcript of John Calipari and what he said, and then we could hear Chris Russell read it as though he's John Calipari. I'm just saying, just a content idea.
That's a great content idea. I'm going to pitch it when his producer, Amac, gets in here.
Oh, please do. It would be gold. Gold, Jerry, gold. I mean, I would love to hear him just say, the rules be the rules. And at some point, it'll somehow come into a conversation about like a punter battle or, a special teams coordinator or one of those things, because nobody loves special teams coordinators more than Chris Russell. But yeah, look, I am team Coach Cal all the way, just from an entertainment perspective. And listen, somebody that has still had a lot of success in college basketball. And he's not wrong. Like this, it is insane to have different rules for international born players and American players in college sports is just like, well, what are you doing? Like you control what's actually going on there on the court in the sport. Like you just say, sorry, like you were drafted in the NBA. You can't now come in and play college basketball. They've already loosened a lot of the rules, and I'm all for NIL. I'm all for players capitalizing off of their likeness. I'm all for players having the ability to transfer if they went and were recruited by a coach and that coach gets fired or leaves. Like, yeah, you went to go play for that guy. I've been places where you go to work for a boss and then the boss is gone and you're looking around going, this is a different thing than I was pitched. Like, I've seen it. You want to be a part of something that you were sold, essentially. Like this, I have no problems with players doing that. The problem is you got to have some level of limits. And I think we've now hit one of our limits where this is going to be a conversation in college basketball all season long. And if he's really good, and I'll be honest with you, I've not watched any film on James and Najee playing overseas, apparently pretty good. 21-year-old kid, like, okay. If he's really good too, I actually kind of hope he dominates. Like he's just averaging like 25 and 12. It's going to be absolute chaos. And I'm here for it. I'm here for the chaos. All right. I'm done Chris Russell is up next. I'm back with Zabe Friday afternoon on The Fan. So Steve Zabin and I will be reuniting like old times as well. It's always a reunion. Always a reunion with those guys. Chris Russell coming up next. I'm Nick Ashew on the Team 980.